Chapter 16. The Yu clan's one sword was a very cruel training method. This was a method passed down in the Yu clan, and it was unknown why it appeared in the ancestral dragon arts. The male infants of every generation of the Yu clan were all candidates to inherit the Yu clan's one sword. When these infants were born, their faces would be destroyed, and the Yu clan would secretly send servants to each of these infants to the slums. These infants would be tortured by the servants, and because of their disfigurement, they would be discriminated against. They would be exposed to the coldness and warmth of the human world, and their temperament would become extremely resentful of the world. When they grew up, the Yu clan would bring them back, and they would be taught special internal energy, and at the same time undergo special training for the Yu clan's one sword. The special training was very simple. It was to train them to kill. First, they would use corpses to train. These candidates would continuously use short swords to attack the vital parts of the corpses. Every corpse had to be pierced and rotted by the swords before they could be thrown away. When they could easily attack the enemy's vital parts with their eyes closed, they would continuously carry out missions. The Yu clan's one sword killed people in one strike. There were a total of 2 steps. Hide the sword, draw the sword. The Yu clan's one sword did not draw, but once it was drawn, it would definitely kill. Simple, very simple, so simple that it could kill. But it was known as the number 1 sword in assassination. When they are disfigured in infancy, they are tortured and discriminated against. They have no family, and no one to help them. When they grow up, they spend their days with corpses, constantly piercing them until they rot. This kind of training is too perverted and disgusting. Qin Yu's expression was very ugly. Once he thought about the disfigurement of infants, and the use of corpses for training, this so-called Yu clan's one sword made Qin Yu feel very disgusted. Training assassins in this way was too perverted. Murderous aura. The descendants of the Yu clan are the most terrifying. The final judgment of the ancestral dragon arts regarding the Yu clan's one sword made Qin Yu's heart skip a beat. After thinking for a moment, Qin Yu completely understood the terror of the Yu clan's one sword, and why it was known as the number 1 sword in assassination. Qin Yu's face was full of shock. Terrifying, terrifying. The person who designed the Yu clan's one sword training method is too terrifying. Those babies were disfigured and discriminated against since they were young. They did not have any familial ties, and their minds were completely twisted. When they grew up, they were trained to pierce corpses, and they spent their days with corpses. Finally, they have to constantly carry out missions. This kind of baby has an extremely deep evil aura in their hearts from a young age. After spending all their time with corpses, their evil aura will become even more terrifying. Once they kill someone, just the evil aura that erupts in an instant will cause their opponent's mind to be in chaos. Qin Yu slowly took 2 deep breaths and calmed down. Because he was often alone, Qin Yu was often used to thinking about things. There are 2 reasons why this Yu clan's one sword can be called the number 1 assassination sword. Firstly, it cultivates a terrifying aura. Secondly, it is the simplest way to strike. Qin Yu concluded in his heart. The hostility that is cultivated from infancy and hidden deep in the heart becomes very terrifying when it reaches adulthood. When you kill someone, the evil aura will probably cause your opponent's state of mind to be in chaos. At that time, you can quickly draw your sword and kill your enemy with 1 strike. Yu clan's one sword had 2 steps. Hide the sword, then draw the sword. This was very particular. Hide the sword was so hidden that people couldn't sense the sword's existence. Draw the sword was so that people couldn't react at all. At the same time, it was necessary to kill the enemy with 1 strike. There was no room for error. Cultivating that terrifying aura is to make the draw more confident. In fact, without that terrifying aura, Yu clan's one sword is still a powerful assassination technique. Qin Yu praised in his heart. Although hide the sword then draw the sword was simple, it was extremely refined. However, Qin Yu understood one thing. Without that terrifying evil aura, Yu clan's one sword was at most a powerful assassination sword technique. It couldn't be called the number 1 assassination sword technique. I don't want to be so abnormal. However, the so-called hide the sword, then draw the sword of Yu clan's one sword suits me very well. Qin was very happy in his heart. Normally, I will hide the sword and use close combat. When I can't, I will draw the sword. Alright, my weapon will be the short sword. Using fists and legs to fight was Qin Yu's favorite. The reason why he chose to use the short sword was because it was also used for close combat. The moment the sword was drawn, it would directly end the enemy's life. Life and death were decided in an instant. Qin Yu liked this kind of fighting style that burned with passion and made the blood in his body boil. In close combat, he could directly use his fists and legs to attack the enemy's vital points. The hand could be formed into a fist, a claw, a palm, a saber. The leg could be formed into a whip, a saber, a staff, an axe. Close combat is the most exciting part. Qin Yu looked at the wooden dummy in front of him that was completely made of human bones. He immediately stretched out his hand into a claw and crushed the wooden dummy's joints. At the same time, his hands were like phantoms. In just an instant, all the joints of the wooden dummy were completely crushed. In the West Court's hot spring, Qin Yu swayed in the water like a swimming dragon. At the same time, his hands continuously threw out punches. People could even see the shadows of his fists under the water. Qin Yu's speed was too fast. After almost 3 years of training, Qin Yu had more or less mastered the characteristics of water. In the water, he could borrow the water's momentum. The water simply could not be his resistance. In the water, Qin Yu was like a fish, very slippery. Xiao Yu. Lian Yin walked into the West Court smilingly. Bang! Qin Yu suddenly sprang up from the water. He unexpectedly jumped out of the water directly. Supporting himself on the ground with both hands, he did a somersault and landed beautifully. Grandpa Lien. Qin Yu walked towards Lian Yin smilingly. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew on Qin Yu's body. Qin Yu's body swayed unconsciously, and he suddenly arrived at Lian Yan's side. His speed was frighteningly fast. Lian Yan could not help being shocked. Qin Yu's eyes suddenly burst out with an astonishing light. His whole body became motionless, as if he had been struck by lightning. Just now. Qin Yu was incomparably shocked by what had just happened. When he was in the water, Qin Yu tried every means to borrow the water's momentum to increase his speed. But when he came out of the water just now, when the wind blew, Qin Yu thought of Lian Yan and unconsciously tried to borrow the water's momentum again. Just like when he was in the water. In fact, it was the wind. Water's resistance, wind's resistance, air's resistance, in fact, they're all resistance. It's just that water's resistance is even greater. If I can borrow the water's momentum, why can't I borrow the wind's momentum to make the wind no longer a resistance when I'm moving fast? Qin Yu's heart became even more excited. Xiao Yu? Seeing this scene, Lian Yin was shocked. Qin Yu did not raise his head at all. He just waved his hand and said, Grandpa Lien, if there's anything, let's talk about it later. After saying so, he completely immersed himself in his own comprehension. Qin Yu completely closed his eyes. He used his body to feel the wind's resistance even more clearly. Speed. How fast can a person be? When he was walking normally, he could hardly feel the air's resistance. But when he was moving at an extreme speed, the faster he was, the greater the resistance he would feel. When his speed reached its limit, the air's resistance would reach a frightening level. When this resistance is no longer a resistance but even an assistance, how fast will my speed be? Thinking of this, Qin Yu immediately had a goal in his mind. During this period of time, he had been looking for his own body maneuvering skill. At this moment, Qin Yu suddenly understood that this might be the path of his body maneuvering skill. Closing his eyes, he walked slowly and felt the wind's resistance, just like when he felt the water's resistance in the water. However, the air's resistance is obviously smaller than that of the water's, so it's even more difficult to follow the wind's momentum. Qin Yu had experience in the water, so now his comprehension speed was much faster. At the same time, Qin Yu consciously integrated the art of Qimen Duanjia into it. Day after day, resisting the water pressure under the waterfall, running with weights, exercising finger strength, practicing his reflexes in the sandbag formation, practicing his physical strength with wooden sticks, practicing his close combat strength in the wooden dummy alley, using the Yu clan's one sword against a mannequin, and comprehending the body maneuvering skill with the help of the air and wind, absorbing internal energy, increasing the toughness and potential of his muscles. Thanks to his rapidly increasing appetite, his bones and muscles also transformed rapidly. Qin Yu, who was in the stage of physical development, followed the near-perfect limit training to constantly make his body reach a perfect balance. And his strength also increased rapidly. His body maneuvering skill was also gradually reaching completion. When Qin Yu moved extremely fast, the resistance of the air and wind also became smaller and smaller. In the East King's mansion in Iron Edge Town, Qin Yu was looking at a military map on the wall. There were various colored marks on the map. The 3 eastern region counties were black, while the other regions of the Chu Kingdom were red. Looking at this military map, his eyes flashed with killing intent. Every day, he would spend nearly 4 hours motionlessly looking at this map. "Your Highness, there's a message from Misty Villa." Su Yuan, dressed in black, came in. Hearing the words Misty Villa, Qin Yu's attention was finally diverted from the map. He turned his head and said indifferently, "Speak, what message?" Su Yuan immediately replied, "Your Highness, the letter says that the 3 internal experts arranged by Your Highness to protect Xiao Yu in the dark have decided to return to the army." Qin Yu could not help feeling very doubtful. He knew very well about those 3 people. Even though they were only Hotian experts, their joint attack power was still very strong. Moreover, they were very loyal to him and absolutely would not dare to disobey his orders. "Speak, what's the reason?" Qin Yu asked coldly. Su Yuan read the letter in his hand again. With a somewhat strange expression, he said, "The letter says that Your Highness originally arranged for these 3 internal experts to protect Xiao Yu in the dark. But. At this point, Su Yuan seemed to be somewhat unable to continue. "What's the reason? Speak quickly." Qin Yu stared at Su Yuan and asked. With a strange expression, Su Yuan could only say, "Your Highness, the letter says that the 3 internal experts selected by Your Highness basically can't keep up with Xiao Yu's moving speed, so they can't protect Xiao Yu in the dark." "What? Can't keep up? How is that possible?" No matter how calm Qin Yu was, at this moment he opened his eyes wide. This year, Qin Yu was just 12 years old. Chapter 17. Qin Yu couldn't believe this result. Su Yuan also found it hard to believe. But how could the people of Misty Villa dare to deceive Qin Yu? "Your Highness." Su Yuan looks at Qin Yu. Qin Yu calms down and ponders for a moment. Then he stares at Su Yuan and says, "Those 3 internal experts who are secretly protecting you can come back. From today on, there is no need for anyone to secretly protect you." Qin Yu looks at the sky through the window, with a smile on his face. He murmurs, "Yor has grown up. He no longer needs to be under my wings. What he needs is to experience the wind and rain, and finally spread his wings, and soar to the 9th heaven." "Your Highness, should we let Xiao Yu participate in the plan?" Su Yuan suddenly asks. Qin Yu's face turns cold. He says without hesitation, "No. Although your strength is not bad, but in a battle with hundreds of thousands or even millions of soldiers, if he is surrounded, he will be completely useless. Unless his strength reaches the Xiantian realm, he will be able to survive in the midst of thousands of soldiers and horses. Moreover, Yor has never led an army before. So, unless he reaches the Xiantian realm, he absolutely cannot participate in the plan." "Yes," Su Yuan responds. "Su Yuan, there are still a few days until Jingyi's death anniversary." Qin Yu suddenly feels sad. Su Yuan nods and doesn't say anything. Qin Yu continues to train hard. Late at night, he circulates the ancestral dragon arts to merge his internal energy into the depths of his muscles and bones, making his muscles and skin tougher. During the day, he works hard to train his body. At the same time, he trains his close combat skills to perfection. He also practices the Yu clan's one sword. Every day, Qin Yu only sleeps and rests when he soaks in the hot spring for almost 3 hours. In such intense training, time passes very quickly. In the blink of an eye, Qin Yu is 13 years old. Late at night, the sky is filled with stars. It is rare that Qin Yu doesn't cultivate his internal energy. Instead, he looks at the stars in the sky. Beside Qin Yu is a very frightening black eagle. This black eagle is not like an ordinary eagle. Its aura is even sharper. Whether it was the crown-like golden hair on its head, the shiny black hair, or the sharp beak and claws that emitted a cold light that could easily crush rocks, Qin Yu was surprised by Xiao Hei's power. However, he couldn't figure out what kind of bird Xiao Hei was. Xiao Hei, I took you in when you were 7 years old. It's been 6 years now, but I still can't figure out what kind of bird you are. Are you an eagle? Qin Yu touched Xiao Hei's head and said kindly. Xiao Hei enjoyed Qin Yu's touch very much. His sharp eyes looked at Qin Yu with a strong sense of attachment. 5 years of extreme training. Qin Yu's body has undergone earth-shattering changes. If Zhao Yunxing were here, he would also find it hard to believe. After all, the internal energy fused with his muscles, which made Qin Yu's body transform even faster. 5 years of extreme training is comparable to 10 years of extreme training for an ordinary person. In addition, Misty Villa's unique hot spring, medical expert Wang Xian's massage technique and medicinal wine application, as well as all kinds of precious medicinal cuisine, obtained by East vanquishing Prince's powerful influence. Of course, the most important thing is Qin Yu's own hard work and training. However, no matter what kind of environment, the most important thing is still one's own efforts. Qin Yu's determined training for 5 years was like a day. It made the 13-year-old Qin Yu become an external expert. At this moment, Qin Yu's height is almost 1.7 meters. His whole body's muscles are very well coordinated and streamlined. As long as people see Qin Yu's body, they will involuntarily think of 2 words: explosive power and speed. Xiao Hei, it has been 7 years since I came to Misty Villa. Royal Father has also come 4 times. Qin Yu looked at the starry sky, his eyes calm. After 5 years of extreme training, Qin Yu's temperament has also been tempered. Under such an environment, even an ordinary person would have matured a lot. As he grew older, Qin Yu also slowly understood his royal father and saw some things. Royal Father cares about me, I can feel it. For so many years, Royal Father has been painstakingly working on that plan, so he has no time to accompany me. Big brother and second brother are also involved in that plan. I am the only one, living a carefree life in Misty Villa. Qin Yu's eyes showed a trace of helplessness. What kind of plan is that? I don't know. Royal Father also doesn't tell me. Seeing Royal Father so tired, I can't help at all. Qin Yu shook his head and said with a bitter smile, if Qin Yu doesn't even know what kind of plan it is, how can he help? Moreover, his Royal Father Qin De simply doesn't tell him anything. Royal Father is in the army of the wilderness. Big brother is also there. Second brother is also there. They are all working hard to carry out that mysterious plan, but I can't help at all. Qin Yu still remembers what Qin De said last time when he came here. You don't ask. When you become a Xiantian expert, Royal Father will let you join this plan. Xiantian. Qin Yu looked up at the sky and sighed deeply. Then Qin Yu laughed again. Forget it. I don't care so much. If I can't join, then I won't join. The most important thing is to practice hard. On the surface, Qin Yu looked like he didn't care at all. But what was he thinking in his heart? Qin Yu raised his head and looked at the stars in the sky. On one side, Xiao Hei was also looking at the stars. The night was long. A man and an eagle were looking at the stars quietly. Suddenly the sky brightened. They saw one Lu Xing after another streaking across the sky. At first glance, there were at least several tens of Lu Xing. It was none other than the rarely seen Lu Xing rain. It's Lu Xing rain! Qin Yu cried out in surprise. His face was full of excitement. Lu Xing rain was very rare. At least Qin Yu had never seen a Lu Xing rain before. Only Lian Yan had once told Qin Yu about the charm and brilliance of Lu Xing rain. Sure enough, one Lu Xing after another was so dazzling and brilliant. Their brilliance completely covered the other stars. Each Lu Xing was bursting with the last light of its life, burning its last energy, and emitting a brilliance that could make people's souls tremble. Qin Yu looked at it quietly. His eyes were full of mysterious colors. Lu Xing, although short, bursts with the strongest brilliance, dazzling and dazzling. In one's life, even a Xiantian master can only live for several hundred years. Instead of living a mediocre life, it's better to learn from Lu Xing and burn the passion of life, surging the hot blood in the veins, making life emit the most dazzling brilliance. Only in this way can one die without regrets. Qin Yu looked at the Lu Xing disappearing one by one, and couldn't help sighing with emotion. Limit training made Qin Yu's heart burn with passion. He liked the feeling of his blood boiling even more. This was also the reason why Qin Yu chose to engage in close combat. And now, looking at the reign of Lu Xing, Qin Yu understood even more in his heart. Xiao He, I haven't been to Yin capital for more than half a year. Tomorrow, let's make a trip to Yin capital and stroll around the city. While we're at it, we'll bring the short sword in the prince's mansion, the Yuchang sword. Qin Yu stroked Xiao He's head and said. Xiao He looked at Qin Yu and let out an eagle cry that resounded through the sky. Obviously, he was very happy. The Yuchang sword was a short sword forged from meteoric iron. After Qin Yu practiced the Yu clan's one sword, this kind of short sword was the most suitable for him to use. After hearing about the Yuchang sword from Lian Yan, Qin Yu decided to go to the prince's mansion to get the Yuchang sword. The sky gradually darkened. This was the darkness before dawn. When dawn broke, Qin Yu would go to Yin capital. Chapter 18. Hiya. Qin Yu, who was dressed in black, was galloping along the main road on a tall black horse. He was rushing towards the Yin capital alone. Above Qin Yu, there was a black eagle flying high. It was Qin Yu's pet Xiao He. Feeling the wind blowing, Qin Yu's face was full of enjoyment. Haha, this feeling is really good. After taking off the 200 pounds of weight, my whole body feels as light as a feather. Qin Yu excitedly supported himself with both hands and somersaulted on the horse. He opened his arms to feel the wind, and then accurately landed on the horse's back. Starting at 8 years old, he trained to his limit for 5 years. Without wasting any time, coupled with the continuous absorption of internal energy, Qin Yu's 5 years of training was equivalent to 10 years of limit training for an average person. Qin Yu had already become a true external expert. His movements were light and graceful. His speed was as fast as a cunning rabbit. His explosive power and strength were not something an average expert could reach. Hiya, hiya. Qin Yu excitedly sped up. The horse galloped even faster. In an instant, only a trail of dust was left on the main road. His figure had already disappeared at the end of the road. The horse galloped, leaving the roadside scenery behind. Qin Yu suddenly slowed down, and then jumped off the horse, and ran towards a village on the side of the road. Qin Yu would go to the city once or twice a year. When he first entered the city from Misty Villa, he drank water in this village, and became good friends with some of the children in this village. Deshan Xiaolu. Qin Yu shouted as soon as he reached the entrance of the village. Xiaoyu. A robust young man ran out happily with a shovel in his hand. This young man's naked upper body revealed his muscles, which contained explosive power. This was Qin Yu's good friend Taishan, who just turned 16 this year. Brother Yu. A little girl with a ponytail also ran out and suddenly hugged Qin Yu. This little girl was Taishan's sister Taishaolu. She was only 8 years old this year. Little Yu, you're here? Some of the surrounding villagers also warmly greeted Qin Yu. They were quite familiar with him. After all, Qin Yu had been here several times. Qin Yu didn't dress like an ordinary person, but he treated people very well. This was also the reason why the villagers liked Qin Yu. Xiaolu Dashan, I haven't been here for half a year. How are you? Qin Yu asked with a smile as he lovingly patted Xiaolu's head. Everything is fine, Taishan said with a smile. Beside him, little Jade's big black eyes lit up. She suddenly said, Big brother you must be thirsty. I'll go get some water. After saying that, she didn't wait for Qin Yu to reply and ran straight to her house. When Qin Yu first came to this village, it was precisely because he was thirsty and wanted to drink water. Dashan, I'm going to the city soon. What do you want to buy? I'll buy it for you, Qin Yu asked. When Taishan heard this, he thought for a moment and said with an embarrassed smile, I want to buy a good saber. The money I saved is almost enough to buy one. Returning the money you saved? What are you talking about? I'll go buy one. Consider it a gift from me. Qin patted Taishan's shoulder and said with a smile. Taishan was slightly surprised and then quickly said, "How can this be? A good saber is very expensive. How can you? Big brother, you drink some water." Xiaolu ran over with a bowl of water. Qin took the water and looked at Xiaolu with a smile. "You're being affectionate for no reason. There must be something. Say it. What do you want your big brother you to do?" Qin saw through Xiaolu's mind with a glance. I've been exposed." Xiaolu blinked her big eyes twice and blushed. Then she said embarrassedly, "Big brother, I want a cloth doll. The kind with a big red flower embroidered on the head." Qin smiled and pinched Xiaolu's nose, saying, "I know. A cloth doll with a big red flower embroidered on the head. Don't worry, I'll definitely buy it for you." Qin liked Xiaolu very much. When Qin first came, Xiaolu was only 4 or 5 years old. After drinking the water, Qin returned the bowl to Xiaolu and said to Taishan and Xiaolu, "Dashan, Xiaolu, I'll go to the city first. When I come back, I'll bring back the things you want." "Little you this money." Taishan held the copper coins in his hand, but didn't know what to say. However, Qin runs towards the horse. With a single jump, he jumps 2 to 3 meters and forcibly jumps onto the horse's back. Then with a joyous cry of the horse, he disappears before their eyes. "Big brother, you goodbye." Xiaolu quickly waved her small hand. After entering Yin capital, Qin directly rushed to the prince's mansion. "Uncle Li, help me put away the horse." Qin directly jumped off the horse and jumped into the air. He somersaulted and landed at an extremely fast speed. A black eagle swooped down from the sky and directly landed on Qin shoulder. It was the black eagle. When the 2 burly guards of the East vanquishing prince's mansion saw Qin, they immediately knelt down on one knee and respectfully said, "Greetings to third prince." Every time Qin came to Yin capital, he would return to the prince's mansion. The people in the mansion also knew Qin. The reason why he came to the mansion was probably because he wanted to see if his father was there. The butler of the mansion, Gumin, immediately walked over with a smile. "Little the prince hasn't returned yet." Gumin directly said. Gumin knew that every time Qin returned to the mansion, he would ask about the prince, so he said it in advance. Oh, Qin was a little upset. Then he said with a smile, "Grandpa Gu, take me to the armory. Then you follow me," Gumin said smilingly. The armory was not something ordinary people could enter. There were several secret places in the mansion, such as the armory and the secret book depository. But only a few people could enter these places at will. Prince Qinda, the 3 princes, Su Yuan, Lian Yin and the butler of the mansion. Even the deputy butler of the mansion was not qualified to enter. Pavilions, terraces, towers, painted rafters, carved beams, winding corridors and numerous courtyards. The princely mansion occupies an extremely large area. After walking for a long time behind Gumin, Qin finally enters an underground secret storehouse. This underground storehouse is none other than the so-called weapon storing storehouse. Every weapon in it can be considered an outstanding weapon. Little you can choose whatever weapon you want. "I'm leaving first," Gumin said smilingly. "Grandpa Gu, get someone to prepare a battle saber, a black iron battle saber. Also prepare a rag doll. Remember, the rag doll's head must be embroidered with a big red flower." Qin hurriedly told Gumin Yin capital was very large. Qin knew where to buy a saber, but he did not know where to buy a rag doll. It was easiest to let someone in the mansion do it. Gumin was stupefied. A rag doll? And embroidered with a big red flower? Gumin looked at Qin carefully several times. No matter how he looked at him, he could not imagine that Qin, who was as tall as him, would like a rag doll. But since Qin asked for it, he would not refuse. "All right, little you, since you like a rag doll and one embroidered with a big red flower, I'll send someone to buy one right away." After saying smilingly, Gumin went straight out of the armory. Qin was stupefied for a while. "I like a rag doll and one embroidered with a big red flower?" After a while Qin reacted. He immediately turned around and said hurriedly, "Grandpa Gu." But at this moment Gumin had already left. Qin was speechless. What the hell was this? He had been misunderstood as liking a rag doll, especially one embroidered with a big red flower. Forget it. Qin Yu smiled carelessly. Then he started to look for the Yuchang sword carefully. There were dozens of weapons in the armory, all of which belonged to the so-called immortal grade. Most of them were refined from some good minerals found in the untainted land. Weapons were generally divided into mortal grade and immortal grade. Mortal grade weapons were refined from some minerals that could be easily found in the Qianlong continent. Immortal grade weapons were extremely rare. They were refined from materials found in the untainted land, or from untainted land demonic beasts. Of course, mortal grade weapons were also divided into high, middle, and low grades. Immortal grade weapons were also divided into high, middle, and low grades. The Yuchang sword was a low-grade immortal grade short sword. However, there was only one short sword in the entire armory. Yuchang sword. Qin Yu looked at the short sword in front of him. This short sword was 1 inch wide and 7 inches long. It was pitch black and very inconspicuous. Such a pitch black short sword was very rare. It is probably made from the special material of the meteoric metal. Qin Yu held the short sword. This pitch black Yuchang sword did not reflect light at all. If he killed someone in the dark, it would definitely be hard for others to notice. Phew! Qin Yu's hand moved, and the Yuchang sword disappeared completely. It disappeared from Qin Yu's hand. The Yu clan's one sword had the saying of hide the sword, then unsheath the sword. Qin Yu had been practicing for almost 2 years. This hide the sword was already as good as fire. When the short sword was hidden, no one would be able to notice it. Moreover, this Yuchang sword was only 7 inches long. It did not affect Qin Yu's close combat at all. Suddenly, Qin Yu moved his right hand. 2 sharp sounds resounded in the air. Qin Yu's right hand was still the same as before. There was nothing there. If there were experts, they would be able to see clearly that in that instant, the Yuchang sword appeared in Qin Yu's hand. Then with 2 rapid strokes, the Yuchang sword disappeared from his hand instantly. The speed was extremely fast. From this, one could see the speed of the hide the sword. The Yu clan's one sword's hide the sword technique is indeed amazing. However, the hide the sword technique described in the ancestral dragon art requires 10 years to reach the hidden sword realm like mine. But I reached it in 2 years. It seems that the ancestral dragon art's description is not completely accurate. Qin Yu sighed. Qin Yu was wrong. For an ordinary expert, it would indeed take 10 years. However, Qin Yu's muscles had absorbed internal energy and were extremely flexible. Moreover, Qin Yu often trained his fingers' agility and speed. This caused his control over his muscles to be extremely high. With the flexibility of his muscles and his strong control over his muscles, Qin Yu could easily hide the Yuchang sword through his muscles. But how could an ordinary expert train their body to such a level? His hide the sword training for 2 years was comparable to an ordinary person's 10 years. This was extremely normal. From this, one could see how correct Zhao Yunxing's theory of first train a perfectly coordinated body, then train and attack techniques was. Sharpening the axe would not delay the cutting of firewood. This was the principle. There were other weapons in the armory such as sabers, spears, rods, and so on. Qin Yu did not even glance at them. If only there was a pair of gloves that could increase the attack power of my knuckles. Qin Yu looked carefully. Although the attack power of Qin Yu's knuckles was strong and extremely hard, it was impossible for him to fight with divine weapons with his bare hands. If there was a pair of gloves that could protect his knuckles, it would be possible. Chapter 19. After searching for a while, Qin Yu regretfully gave up. There was only one boxing glove in the armory, and it completely covered the hand. Qin Yu didn't like that kind of boxing glove at all. Once he wore that kind of boxing glove, Qin Yu wouldn't be able to use some of his attacks. Forget it, I'll refine it when I get good materials in the future. Qin Yu could only comfort himself, and then he left the armory. Over 100 people riding horses galloped on the main road at high speed. The leader was a nearly 2-meter tall barbaric man, with extremely developed muscles. This man wore a black robe, and his entire body was covered by the black robe. His eyes flickered with traces of cold light, appearing very sinister. Stop! The leading barbaric man suddenly waved his hand and coldly shouted. Immediately, the cavalry of over 100 people abruptly stopped. Third brother, take a group of people and seize all the wealth and women in that village. I'll give you 5 minutes. Second brother and I will go first. We'll wait for you at Luoting Mountain. The leading barbaric man directly ordered. It's just a small village. 5 minutes. There's plenty of time. Big brother, don't worry. Brothers, let's go. A lean one-eyed man with a long and narrow curved blade on his back shouted loudly and led 50 people to charge towards the village not far away. That strong barbaric man led the remaining 2 groups of people and directly rushed towards Luoting Mountain. Tai Shan, with his strong upper body naked, was digging at the entrance of the village with a shovel. Beads of sweat seeped out of his strong back. Beside him, little Jade was looking at the flowers on the side of the road. Her eyes were spinning as she let her imagination run wild. Big brother, when is Big brother you coming back? Little Jade looked at the sky. There was a layer of dark clouds in the sky. Clearly, the weather wasn't very good. Tai Shan smiled and said, Little Jade, don't worry. Little you won't forget. At this moment, Tai Shan couldn't help but think of the war blade he had asked Qin Yu to buy for him. Tai Shan usually liked to play with spears and clubs, and what he dreamed of most was a sharp war blade. Ah, it's horses. Big brother Yu is coming. Little Jade looked into the distance and became excited. Tai Shan felt the ground shake violently. No, it's not just one person. Tai Shan looked carefully and saw dozens of people rushing over on horseback. Tai Shan had a thought, and he was scared out of his wits. Xiaolu, run. Tai Shan picked up Xiaolu and rushed towards the village. When he looked back, he saw dozens of mounted bandits approaching. Each of the mounted bandits raised their sabers. Tai Shan immediately shouted towards the village, The mounted bandits are here. The bandits are here. Horse bandits were more powerful than ordinary bandits. They had horses and could come and go without a trace. Moreover, they were more bloodthirsty. Ordinary bandits would only rob the surrounding villages a little in order to make a profit in the long run. It was also common for mounted bandits to slaughter a village. The bandits were here. The entire village was in a panic. Every single strong adult man picked up a weapon from their room. Some were shovels, while others were chopping wood. The children, the elderly, and the women all hid behind them. Go! The one-eyed man suddenly urged the horse to speed up. His eyes flashed with a cold light. The horse's speed was very fast. Soon it would catch up with Tai Shan. The other villagers were worried for Tai Shan and his sister, but none of them dared to go forward. Tai Shan was still 100 meters away from the village, but the one-eyed man riding a fast horse was only 10 meters away from him. With a flash of light, a long and narrow scimitar appeared in the one-eyed man's hand. A bloodthirsty light flashed in his eyes. Stop! Suddenly, a strong man rushed up. It was Tai Shan's father. The one-eyed man's mouth had a trace of coldness. His wrist suddenly moved. The long and narrow saber in his hand turned into a flash of lightning and directly chopped towards Tai Shan. Tai Shan was always paying attention to his back. Seeing this scene, he immediately rolled on the ground like a donkey. Fortunately, he had been training himself regularly. Tai Shan was able to dodge this attack. The one-eyed man's face changed. Humph! With a cold snort, he actually tiptoed and flew up high from the horse's back. The rotating saber actually turned back. The one-eyed man easily caught it. Xiao! With a flash of light, Tai Shan hurriedly rolled and narrowly dodged the saber. But ah! Little Jade screamed. Tai Shan lowered his head and saw that little Jade's right arm had been cut off. The broken arm was lying on the side. Little Jade's face was pale with pain. Just now, when Tai Shan dodged, little Jade's arm in his arms was outside. It happened to be cut off. At this moment, Tai Shan's father finally caught up. Seeing this scene, his eyes were naturally filled with anger. Pooh! With a flash of the saber, Tai Shan's father's head flew up. He was killed in an instant. How could a farmer be compared with the number 3 in a group of mounted bandits? All of you listen to me. Hand over all your money and young women. Then I'll spare your little village. Otherwise, I'll slaughter you all. The one-eyed man said with a cold smile. He was holding the saber dripping with blood in his hand. The other mounted bandits also rode forward one by one, looking down at the villagers below. Go to hell. With a gust of wind, a shovel carrying an extremely strong force ruthlessly smashed on the head of a mounted bandit. Boom! The sound was incomparably loud. On the spot, the mounted bandit's head was smashed open. Blood splattered all over the ground. With a ferocious and twisted face, Tai Shan's arm muscles were twisted. Holding the shovel in his hand, he looked at the mounted bandits in front of him with hatred. "Oh, you actually killed one of our brothers. Brothers, let's directly destroy this village. Only leave the women behind," the one-eyed man said indifferently. At this moment he was already angry. The other mounted bandits were also angry. In their eyes, an ordinary village was simply a piece of meat. Who would have thought that one of their brothers would die here? Father Little Jade. His father had already been killed, and his sister had already fainted with a severed arm. Tai Shan's head was completely feverish, and there was only anger in his heart. Right now, he only wanted to take revenge. He glared at the one-eyed man in front of him. The severed arm flew up and blood splattered. The one-eyed man easily killed the villagers one by one. The villagers' dying attacks were no threat to him. How could an ordinary person compare to an internal strength expert? One by one, the villagers he was familiar with, his own uncles and aunts, were killed just like that. Tai Shan's eyes were red. He stared so hard that the corners of his eyes were about to split open. "Come kill me." Tai Shan picked up the saber of the mounted bandit he killed and rushed towards the one-eyed man. However, the one-eyed man seemed to be toying with him. He didn't kill him, and used his superior Qing Gong to easily kill the others. Tai Shan was constantly chasing behind him. Seeing the people he was familiar with being killed one by one, Tai Shan was in so much pain that he was about to go crazy. "Stop!" Suddenly, a thunderous roar resounded through the entire courtyard, and everyone was shocked into a daze in an instant. With a black iron saber in one hand and a rag doll in the other, Qin Yu appeared on the scene. The one-eyed man looked at Qin Yu. His eyes slightly narrowed, and then he said with a smile, "This friend, I am the third brother of the Black Wind Mounted Bandit Bai San. People call me Scimitar-san. How should I address you?" This Bai San was also an internal strength expert. He could tell at a glance that the youth in front of him was not an ordinary person. "Little Jade." Qin Yu looked at the pale little Jade who had lost her right arm. He felt a burst of pain in his heart. Fortunately, Qin Yu was proficient in medicine. He immediately stopped the bleeding from the severed arm by pressing her acupuncture points. Little Jade slowly opened her eyes. Seeing Qin Yu, a slight smile appeared on her pale face. "Brother Yu." When little Jade saw her dead father and other familiar people in the village, she couldn't help but cry. "Father, uncle, uncle." Little Jade's tears kept flowing. At the same time, she couldn't help but twitch. The pain of losing an arm was too terrifying for a little girl. Qin Yu sees that many of the villagers who greeted him warmly half a day ago have now died. The bloodthirsty blood contained in the Qin clan's bloodline in his body starts to boil. His eyes also start to burn with faint flames. Qin Yu carefully placed the rag doll next to little Jade. Then he suddenly stood up and threw the black iron saber in his hand to Tai Shan. "Tai Shan, catch the saber." Tai Shan immediately caught the black iron saber. At this moment, the black iron saber was still very useful for fighting. Qin Yu looked at the small severed arm. He knew that it was little Jade's severed arm. From now on, little Jade would forever be a disabled person. The one-eyed man Bai San immediately said with a smile, "Friend, you are also an expert. How can you fight with our Black Wind, for a group of ordinary people? Why don't you just pick one of these women? How about it?" Bai San could see that Qin Yu was an expert. Generally, experts had their own masters. Bai San didn't want to offend anyone. Moreover, in his opinion, the young man in front of him shouldn't be weak. If he killed the young man, many of the mounted gangsters would die. It wasn't worth it. Qin Yu looked coldly at the dozens of mounted gangsters in front of him. "You all deserve to die." Qin Yu squeezed out these words from between his teeth. Suddenly, Qin Yu appeared by the side of a mounted gangster. His hand formed into an eagle's claw and grabbed the gangster's throat. Qin Yu looked coldly at the mounted gangster. The mounted gangster's eyes were filled with terror and shock. Qin Yu's eagle claw tightened. With a cautious sound, the mounted gangster died instantly. At the same time, Chinyu's body flashed and like lightning, he charged towards another mounted gangster. His leg was like thunder. It fiercely slashed across the sky, piercing through the air, and smashing heavily on the mounted gangster's head. Boom! The head shattered. Another mounted gangster died. Brothers, don't show mercy. Kill. At this moment, White 3 was also angry. Immediately, all the mounted gangsters charged towards Chinyu. Chinyu's body was very fast. In a flash, he was already far away. Bang! Chinyu sent a person flying with a heavy kick. Then with a high-pressure split kick, he smashed the opponent's head. Kacha! Chinyu flew up and kicked the throat with the tip of his foot. This kick ended the life of the gangster. Ha! Chinyu shouted loudly. His finger fist, which had the strongest penetrating force, hit the opponent's abdomen. The liver immediately ruptured. The mounted gangster's eyes were wide open. But he was already dead. Bang! Chinyu turned around and kicked. The tip of his foot kicked the vital point of the mounted gangster's spine. The mounted gangster was immediately paralyzed on the ground and could no longer move. Chinyu's body movements were profound. He was like a whirlwind. His legs and fists attacked rapidly. None of the mounted gangsters were able to block Chinyu's attacks. Generally, Chinyu would kill his opponents in one move. At most, he would kill them in 2 moves. His attacks on vital points were extremely powerful. Chinyu's original training plan was perfect. Now, Chinyu could lift over 100 jin in the air with one hand. Normally, he could even jump freely, with a weight of 200 jin. The strength of his fists and legs was extremely powerful. He could definitely kill people easily. Also, with Chinyu's body movements, the wind was no longer a hindrance. With the combination of the Chimenduanjia technique and his own explosive speed, Chinyu's body movements were far beyond these people's reach. How is this possible? How is this possible? The one-eyed man held his scimitar and looked at everything in front of him in a daze. A figure was moving at a terrifying speed. His fists were as fast as lightning, and his legs were as heavy as a mountain. When his fist struck, he fell, and when his legs struck, he flew. Every mounted gangster was killed in an instant. In just half a minute, nearly half of the 50 mounted gangsters were dead. Stop, fight with me. The one-eyed man quickly chased after him with his qin gong. But Chinyu's body movements were too mysterious. It was very strange, but also seemed to contain some profound principles. With a flash, he was already several meters away. There was no way the one-eyed man could catch up. The one-eyed man, White 3, raised his scimitar and chased madly, but he couldn't even catch up to Chinyu's clothes. He kept chasing, but could only watch as the mounted gangsters were killed one by one. Fight with me. If you have the ability, don't run. Don't run. White 3 roared madly, but no matter how much he shouted, it was useless. One by one, the mounted gangsters were killed. Even if some mounted gangsters wanted to escape on horseback, it was useless. Because Chinyu's speed was far faster than a horse's. Chinyu used a high-flying whirlwind kick, viciously kicking the side of a panicked mounted gangster's head. It was precisely the temple. That mounted gangster's head immediately shattered, and he fell to the ground, unable to get up. He died on the spot. Chinyu floated down to the ground, coldly looking at the last mounted gangster, White 3. In a short minute, only one of the 50 mounted gangsters was left. It was the third brother of the Black Wind mounted gang, White 3. Holding his scimitar, White 3's single eye kept flashing, and a low growl came from his throat. In a short minute, all of his subordinates were dead. The entire Black Wind mounted gang had lost a third of its strength. How could White 3 not be terrified? Die! White 3 used his qin gong and rushed towards Chinyu. The scimitar in his hand flashed with a cold light. Chinyu stood motionless, watching White 3 come for him. White 3's eyes turned red, and the internal energy in his body completely exploded. The scimitar in his hand flashed with rays of light. His body reached its limit, and in an instant, he was in front of Chinyu. The surrounding villagers who were lucky enough to survive saw that Chinyu was still motionless, and all of them started to worry. At that moment, Chinyu's body flashed, and he was beside White 3. He kicked the back of White 3's knee from the side. Kacha! The side of the knee had the weakest resistance, and it was instantly broken. Ah! White 3 suddenly screamed, and his body flashed. At the same time, Qin Yu's right hand turned into a claw, and he grabbed White 3's wrist, and a strong finger force suddenly shot out. With the sound of bones breaking, White 3's right wrist was finished. Pung! Qin Yu's finger punch directly hits the vital part of Bai San's throat. Qin Yu's entire body's power hits the finger punch, and explodes with the strongest penetrating power. With a sharp and clear sound, Bai San, whose eyes are wide open, falls to the ground with a loud bang. He is unable to crawl back up. The 50 men of the Black Wind Bandit gang were all killed within a minute. Chapter 20. Sounds of horses neighing could be heard continuously. With the death of the horse bandits, the horses were in a mess. They spread their hooves and ran away, causing the original battlefield to set off a cloud of dust. The dust and smoke enveloped Qin Yu in the middle of the battlefield. The lucky survivors in the village all look in shock at Qin Yu, whose body is indistinct in the smoke and dust. Originally, in their eyes, Qin Yu was only a kind and polite youngster. Who could have thought that just now, in just a short while, this youngster was able to kill all of the extremely terrifying mounted bandits in their eyes? The mounted bandits did not even have the power to resist. Everyone's eyes were focused on Qin Yu. At this moment, Qin Yu lowered his head and gasped for breath. No one knew what Qin Yu was thinking. Qin Yu lowered his head and gasped for breath. No one could see his eyes. They could not imagine the agitation in Qin Yu's heart at this moment. Although he was incomparably decisive when he killed people. But after all, this was his first time killing people. First time. Qin Yu treated people very sincerely. It was very difficult for him to have the intention to kill people. Just now, when he saw the lovely little Lu's arm was cut off, and dozens of innocent villagers were killed, this made Qin Yu's killing intent soar. In a rage, he completely killed everyone. Did I do the right thing? Qin Yu was a little frightened, although he had a strong will. But no matter what, he was only a 13-year-old youth. When a youth who treated others with sincerity and kindness killed 50 people in one go, no matter how strong his will was, he would still be terrified. Uncontrollably, Qin Yu's body trembled a little. Little Yu. Taishan came over and stroked Qin Yu's shoulder. Qin Yu raised his head. There was a trace of hesitation in his eyes. Little Yu, I know what you're feeling, because this is also my first time killing people. But you have to understand that they are demons. They should be killed. If you don't kill them, the people in our village will all die. Killing one evil person can save 100 people. Such evil people should be killed, and they should be massacred. Taishan stared at Qin Yu as he spoke. Taishan's heart was still filled with hatred. His father's death and his sister's broken arm made Taishan even angrier towards those mounted bandits. Qin Yu's body shook slightly. Killing one evil man can save 100 people. Qin Yu muttered to himself, his head still lowered. Taishan couldn't see the expression on Qin Yu's face. He didn't know what Qin Yu was thinking. After a while, Qin Yu finally raised his head. His eyes were shining. He looked at Taishan and said, "Thank you, Dashan. I understand." Suddenly, a smile appeared on Qin Yu's face. "Dashan, why aren't you helping them?" "All right." Taishan was also completely blinded by hatred. After Qin Yu's reminder, he immediately began to help some of the severely injured villagers with the other villagers. At Xiao Lu's house, Xiao Lu's face was pale as she lay on the bed. Qin Yu quietly looked at Xiao Lu from the side. His expression was very complicated. "Xiao Lu, I'm sorry. I came late. I'm really sorry." Qin Yu took the black iron saber and the cloth doll from the prince's mansion and walked around Yin capital before returning. If he had been faster, perhaps Xiao Lu's arm wouldn't have been cut off. "I'm sorry." When Qin Yu recalled the scene of Xiao Lu holding a cup of tea for him in the morning, he felt a burst of heartache. His eyes were filled with sorrow. Suddenly, Qin Yu stood up, his eyes emitting a terrifying cold light. He stared out of the window. Qin Yu's determined face emitted an indescribable radiance. Father, big brother, and second brother are right. There are tens of thousands of people in the hidden dragon continent. There are all kinds of people. We can't abuse our kindness to anyone. Treating people sincerely is good, but some people with evil intentions should be killed. Kill them all. A ball of fire burned in Qin Yu's eyes. Qin Zheng, Qin Feng, and East vanquishing Prince Qinda were not at ease with Qin Yu. They knew that Qin Yu's heart was too kind. Such an attitude would cause him to suffer greatly in the Hidden Dragon continent, where the strong are respected. However, Qinda and the others also believed that Qin Yu would understand how to deal with the world. Because in the history of the Qin clan, there has never been such a kind person. The bloodline of the Qin clan's people is filled with bloodlust. But the battle just now really made my blood boil. Qin Yu's eyes flashed with rays of light. His mind was filled with every scene of the battle just now, using the least amount of strength to attack the most vital part, using every bit of strength to erupt with the strongest attack, using the fastest speed to directly end a person's life. In a close combat, life and death were decided in an instant. Among these people, only the one-eyed man is a little difficult. The others are too weak. Only by fighting with experts at the same level as yourself can you experience the passion of battle. Erupting with the strongest fighting strength at the edge of life and death, burning the passion of life. Just like Lu Xing. Qin Yu recalled the scene of Lu Xing in the rain. At this moment, Tai Shan entered the room and walked directly to Xiaolu's side. He then looked at Xiaolu's little face. Their mother had died in childbirth when she gave birth to Xiaolu. Now their father was also dead. Xiaolu was Tai Shan's only family member. Little Lu, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Tai Shan stroked little Lu's face, his eyes full of grief. Big Mountain. Qin Yu went to Tai Shan's side and patted Big Mountain's shoulder to comfort him. Both of them looked tenderly at little Lu, who was still in a coma. They could not imagine how little Lu would accept all this after waking up. At this moment, the Black Wind Bandit gang was resting in Luoting Mountain, not far from the village. Big brother, it seems that something is wrong. Why hasn't Bai San come yet? It's been a long time. A middle-aged man, whose whole body was wrapped in a black robe, came to the side of the barbaric man, and said with a frown. This middle-aged man was the second brother of the Black Wind Bandit gang, Jia Ming. His inner strength had reached the level of the Black Wind Bandit gang's third brother, Bai San. The barbaric man was very tall and sturdy, and his muscles were extremely developed. Logically speaking, he was a man with strong limbs but a simple mind. However, even the second brother of the Black Wind Bandit gang, Jia Ming, was extremely afraid of this big brother, not only because of his strength, but also because of his vicious heart. The big brother of the Black Wind Bandit gang, Wu Tuan, whose strength had reached the peak of the Hotian level, had an extremely terrifying inner strength. The third brother, Bai San, could not even take one move from Wu Tuan. Humph! Wu Tuan stood up with a cold snort, and suddenly patted the huge rock beside him. That huge rock shook for a moment, and then with a boom, it completely shattered. Countless gravel scattered all over the ground. Wu Tuan's strength was incomparable to that of the 8 external experts that Qin Yu had chosen. He was far more powerful than the current Qin Yu. The reputation of the Black Wind Bandit gang could be said to be built by Wu Tuan alone. Covered in a black robe, Wu Tuan's eyes flashed with cold light. Trash, Bai San, that trash has wasted so much time. Everyone, come with me to see what happened. Wu Tuan in a black robe got on the horse and immediately gave an order. His voice was incomparably cold. Hundreds of bandits, including the second brother, Jia Ming, immediately got on the horse. Go! At Wu Tuan's order, hundreds of bandits immediately urged their horses to speed up and rushed to the village that had just suffered a disaster. Chapter 21. Qin Yu crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at the endless sky through the window. The Black Eagle was standing quietly on his shoulder. On the way back from Flame Capital City, the Black Eagle went to other places and just came back. Qin Yu knew that the Black Eagle went out to look for food. In Misty Villa, the Black Eagle went out to look for food most of the time. Horse Gang is here again. Sounds of panic came from outside the village. Qin Yu couldn't help frowning. His feet could clearly feel the slight vibration of the ground. Horse Gang is here again. As soon as Tai Shan, who is beside Xiaolu, hears this. He suddenly stands up and grabs the black iron battle knife on one side. At this moment, Qin Yu has already walked out of the room. Deshan, a lot of people have come. I estimate there are about 100 of them. As soon as he finishes saying, Qin Yu has already disappeared. The black eagle on his shoulder soars into the sky and flies high into the sky. Tai Shan immediately held the black iron saber and rushed out of the village with a murderous look. Outside the village, Wu Tuan, who looked like a barbaric man, was covered in a black robe. He walked to Bai San's body and looked at it carefully. Oh, I didn't expect that there would be a master of external strength in such a small place. Wu Tuan slightly raised the corner of his mouth and glanced at the villagers in front of him. Those villagers were full of fear, and their hands holding axes and machetes were also trembling. Wu Tuan smiled disdainfully and then glanced around. Suddenly, Wu Tuan focused his eyes on Qin Yu, who just appeared. He looked carefully at Qin Yu's clothes and laughed. My friend, you don't seem to be from this village. Although the style of Qin Yu's clothes was ordinary, Wu Tuan still had a good eye. He could see that the clothes of Qin Yu were extremely precious, and ordinary people couldn't afford them. Yes, Qin Yu asked back. You are the leader of the Black Wind Horse Gang. Smart. Did you kill Bai San? Wu Tuan points at the man under his feet and asks very carelessly. Qin Yu slightly nods. Seeing Qin Yu nod, Wu Tuan's face immediately bursts into a big smile. The look in his eyes, however, becomes ice cold. Knowing that it's us, the Black Wind Bandit Gang, you still dare to make a move? The strength of Wu Tuan's body was still surging. Suddenly, the black robe on his body fluttered, revealing the terrifying muscles of Wu Tuan's body. Brothers, what do you think we should do? Wu Tuan looked at the people behind him. Kill. All the mounted gangsters were enraged when they saw the 50 corpses. At this moment, all of them picked up their sabers. Wu Tuan looked at Qin Yu and said, Little brother, let's play. Whoever loses will die. Qin Yu's body slightly moves. His whole body makes a crackling sound. His 10 fingers of both hands are slightly clenched. Qin Yu's eyes light up. He stares at Wu Tuan in front of him. You should be stronger than that, Bai San. Don't let me down. Second brother, slaughter the whole village. I will play with this brat. Wu Tuan gave the order casually. Yes, big brother. Jiaming's eyes immediately light up. He excitedly said, Brothers, slaughter the whole village. Remember, leave some women behind. Haha, let's do it. A soft sword appears in Jiaming's hand. He stands aside and looks at Wu Tuan and Qin Yu. He unexpectedly doesn't want to participate in the slaughter. In his opinion, those ordinary people in the village are not worthy of him, a master of the late stage of the Hotian realm, to take action. What? Slaughter the whole village? Qin Yu's heart is shocked. He immediately becomes anxious. No matter what, we can't let them slaughter the village. To catch bandits, first catch the leader. Let's kill the boss first. Qin Yu flashes like a soft wind. His body follows a wonderful trajectory and appears in front of Wu Tuan. What a fast speed. What an exquisite body movement. Wu Tuan is shocked in his heart, but his body doesn't move. Puff. A lightning-like sweep close to the ground. Qin Yu often exercises the strength of his legs under the waterfall. In addition, he does weight-bearing squats or weight-bearing long-distance running. His legs are the most powerful part of his body. Qin Yu's legs are the most powerful part of his body. So Qin Yu uses his most powerful attack. Bang! Qin Yu's right leg ferociously kicks Wu Tuan's leg. What? Qin Yu's complexion suddenly changes. A terrifying chi comes directly from Wu Tuan's leg. It not only withstands Qin Yu's attack easily, but also continues to attack Qin Yu. You are courting death. Wu Tuan's high-pressure leg is chopped down like a machete. Qin Yu immediately props himself up with his hands. His whole body soars into the sky like a bird. Then he rolls and escapes. Wu Tuan's leg fiercely smashed on the ground, and a huge rumbling sound resounded. Smoke and dust flew up, and when the smoke and dust dissipated, a huge pit appeared in front of everyone. Wu Tuan's strength was indeed extremely terrifying, as expected. Damn kid. Wu Tuan suddenly becomes angry. Crack. Qin Yu reaches out his hand and forms a claw. directly grabbing a mounted bandit's spine and breaking it open. His body continuously flashes. He is as agile as a willow catkin in the wind, and as fast as lightning. His body, which has been trained to be extremely flexible and tough, perfectly executes his body maneuvering skill, going back and forth among the mounted bandits. One move kills. He doesn't waste any time. Wherever Qin Yu goes, the horse bandits there will die. That guy is really terrifying. His internal strength has reached such a level. He should be the master whose internal strength has reached the peak, as Grandpa Lien said. He is estimated to be at the same level as the 8 masters of external strength. He is really too strong. My attack can't break his defense. Qin Yu is shocked. Let's solve these ordinary horse bandits first. Qin Yu's original plan is to capture the leader first to capture all the bandits, but it failed. He is worried that too many people in the village will be killed, so he kills the ordinary horse bandits first. All of the mounted bandits are scared out of their wits. This youngster is really too terrifying. He can wipe them out in a single move. They are not internal experts. Even though these ordinary mounted bandits are strong, they are still inferior to Bai San. Even Bai San was easily killed by Qin Yu. How can they possibly have the power to fight back? Brothers, let's kill him together. A horse bandit shouts loudly. The other horse bandits suddenly realize and stop killing the villagers. So many people were attacking Qin Yu from all sides. Be careful. Taishan shouts urgently. The other villagers who are watching are all worried about Qin Yu. Qin Yu smiles indifferently. Group attack. When the speed of my body movement reaches the peak, I won't suffer any injuries among thousands of soldiers and horses. Now there are only a few dozen horse bandits left. They are nothing. Qin Yu's figure is like lightning, rushing into the horse bandits. Although these horse bandits hastily slash, Qin Yu easily dodges. Every time he kicks, every time he punches, he can easily kill a horse bandit. Boy, don't dodge if you have the ability. Wu Tuan quickly comes. That guy is too strong. It's better to avoid him first. Qin Yu moves his body and increases the range of his movement, attacking one horse bandit after another from the periphery. Although Wu Tuan's strength is very strong, it seems that his body movement is not as good as Qin Yu's. Second brother, go. Wu Tuan shouts. Jiaming also immediately rushes up. Jiaming's body movement is slightly better than Wu Tuan's, but he still can't do anything in front of Qin Yu's strange body movement. Jiaming is in front of him, but in the next moment he is several meters away from the side. Ah! A mounted bandit opens his eyes wide and utters a miserable scream. His head is sent flying. Qin Yu's extremely fast blade-like kick has unexpectedly chopped off his head directly. End of B1C3. This is the last ordinary horse bandit. In just about 5 minutes, nearly 100 horse bandits are all killed. The main reason is that Wu Tuan and Jiaming, 2 great experts, are on the side, which makes Qin Yu's attack speed slow down. Phew! With a push of his feet, Qin Yu's body soars into the sky. He unexpectedly jumps onto a tree branch outside the village. Standing on the tree branch, he looks coldly at the 2 experts below him. This bastard has killed all my brothers. I must tear him apart. Wu Tuan is extremely angry. The power of his whole body bursts out. The black robe on his body unexpectedly explodes into rags, drifting in the air. Wu Tuan's whole body is surrounded by visible qi. The muscles of his whole body are still vibrating. Reckless bull power is an internal strength mental cultivation method, but it is a mental cultivation method that combines the power of the muscles with the internal strength. Wu Tuan is born with great strength. In addition, he cultivates the reckless bull power. Combining the internal and external strength, he has reached the limit of the Hotian realm. His strength is terrifying. Boss, let me skin him alive. A cold light flashes in Jiaming's eyes. The internal strength in his body is rolling. In terms of internal strength, he and Wu Tuan are at the same level. Wu Tuan is stronger than him because of the combination of internal strength and strength. These 2 great experts are not ordinary people like Bai San. Looking at the 2 great experts in front of him, Qin Yu secretly complains in his heart. That horse bandit boss has reached the limit of the Hotian realm. He can compete with the 8 great external experts. This horse bandit with a soft sword is not much worse. Moreover, his weapon is an unorthodox soft sword. Once he injects his internal strength, his attack will be incomparably strange. Chapter 22. No matter which one of them I face to face, the chance of winning is not big. Qin Yu judged the strength of the two at once. For a moment he didn't know what to do. No matter what, he was only 13 years old. Although he could be regarded as an external expert, he was still far behind Zhao Yunxing and other external experts. Qin Yu could only rely on his body movements and the close-range attack that he had developed himself. "Little brat, die!" Jiaming shouted angrily. His eyes emitted a cold light. He pointed his flexible sword straight at Qin Yu. His whole body shot up to the sky like an arrow leaving the bow. He flew directly towards the branch where Qin Yu was. Qin Yu immediately moved his body. He was as agile as a monkey. He circled around the big tree and landed on the ground. "Don't even think about running away." Jiaming immediately rushed down from the branch. Qin Yu sneered. The leader of the horse gang dares to make a sneak attack. As he said this, Qin Yu was already 10 meters away. The place where he was originally standing was smashed by Wu Tuan's leg. "You know that I will make a sneak attack from behind. You have some skills." Wu Tuan raised his eyebrows. But Qin Yu is very confident in his heart. What is the principle of his body maneuvering technique? It was to sense the wind and turn the resistance of the wind into assistance. It could be said that even with his eyes closed, Qin Yu was able to easily sense the surrounding wind by relying on his body. Every movement of the surrounding people would certainly cause changes in the wind. Naturally, they would be discovered by Qin Yu. This was also the reason why Qin Yu was able to easily dodge and kill people with a wave of his hand when he was besieged by everyone. "You want to sneak attack me? Dream on." Qin Yu stared at these two big enemies. He was extremely angry in his heart. "Lao Air, this brat's body movements are weird. Let's go together." As soon as Wu Tuan gives an order, Jia Ming and Wu Tuan immediately activate the internal energy in their bodies and use their body maneuvering skills to rush at Qin Yu extremely fast. Jia Ming and Wu Tuan's extreme speed brings about strong winds, but Qin Yu is the opposite. Qin Yu's figure flickered, as if he was a butcher dismembering an ox. Although his speed was fast, the sound of the wind created was very faint. One could only hear it if they were close enough. My movement technique hasn't reached the great accomplishment stage yet. If it reaches the great accomplishment stage, my speed will be as fast as lightning, but I won't be able to cause any wind. Qin Yu sighed inwardly. However, at this moment, the two people behind him were chasing after him with sharp whistling sounds. Qin Yu smiled disdainfully. In just a moment, he was several hundred meters away, leaving the two far behind. "Don't run." Wu Tuan and Jia Ming were infuriated, but they couldn't do anything about it. Qin Yu was in front of them. His entire body was as powerful as a cheetah, and as graceful as a cunning rabbit. They couldn't even hear the sound of the wind caused by his extremely fast movements. "You two old fellows, chase after her if you have the ability." Qin Yu giggled. 1 against 2, he had no hope at all. He could only rely on his body movement. Qin Yu was flying away. The two people behind him were in hot pursuit. However, the more they chased, the angrier Wu Tuan and Jia Ming became. They simply couldn't catch up with Qin Yu. Moreover, the more they chased, the bigger the gap between them would be. Qin Yu was constantly teasing them with words. Suddenly, "Kid, if you keep running, I will slaughter the entire village." Wu Tuan suddenly shouted loudly. Qin Yu stopped as if he was struck by lightning. "What the hell do you want to do?" Qin Yu slowly turned around, looking at the two people not far away with a cold face. "Haha, you finally stopped running." Wu Tuan raised his head and laughed out loud. Then he stared at Qin Yu like a poisonous scorpion. "You still ask me what I want to do? You killed more than 100 of my brothers, and you still ask me what I want to do? Ha ha ha, what a big joke." Jia Ming also looked at Qin Yu with a cold smile on his face. "Keep running. You can run, but those villagers can't. There are several hundred people in this small village. It's really too easy to kill these people. Kid, why don't you run?" Wu Tuan looked at Qin Yu very confusedly and asked him in reply. Seeing the expression on Wu Tuan's face, Qin Yu only had one word to describe Wu Tuan in his mind: psychopath. Little you, go quickly. Don't worry about us. Go quickly. Tai Shan was so anxious that his face turned red. He shouted loudly. Just now, Wu Tuan had smashed a big deep hole with one kick, and Qin Yu didn't want to kill the ordinary mounted bandits with one move. Instead, he kept running. Obviously, Qin Yu was not a match for these two mounted bandits. Qin Yu's face was expressionless. He just stared at Wu Tuan and Jia Ming in front of him. Very good. You have a chivalrous heart, don't you? You didn't even run for these useless people. Wu Tuan clenched his fists. Suddenly, there was a burst of crackling sounds. He looked at Qin Yu with a sneer and said, Kid, I'm still very open and aboveboard. I don't want you to surrender. I only want you to fight with me. If you want to fight, then fight. Don't talk nonsense. Qin Yu's face was still expressionless. Wu Tuan was startled. Then he burst into laughter and said, I admire you. You have such a backbone and a chivalrous heart at such a young age. It's a pity that people with a chivalrous heart will die in the end. After saying this, Wu Tuan walked step by step towards Qin Yu. Qin Yu's heart was calm. All of his attention was on Wu Tuan. He knew that Wu Tuan's strength was far greater than his. Therefore, he had to be calm. He had to seize the enemy's flaw. He could only wait for the enemy to reveal a flaw, and then launch a fatal blow. Haha, take my fist. Wu Tuan walked over. Suddenly, his body rushed over like a wild bull. The reckless bull power, which had reached the peak of the acquired realm, burst out completely. His muscles bulged and his blue veins stood out. His right fist was surrounded by streams of energy. No one doubted the power of this fist. Qin Yu's eyes suddenly narrowed. His body suddenly floated up like a butterfly. At the same time, he stretched out his hand like a claw and fiercely grabbed the joint of Wu Tuan's right wrist. Break for me. Qin Yu opened his eyes and shouted angrily. At the same time, the power of his right claw completely burst out. The terrifying power of his fingers, which had been trained to the limit for 5 years, could even break bricks easily. There was no doubt that the power of Qin Yu's fingers was strong. At the moment, the place where Qin Yu was grabbing was the joint of the right wrist. Humph! Wu Tuan sneered. What? Qin Yu felt that his 5 fingers were attacked by a round and powerful energy. His 5 fingers were numb as if they had been electrocuted. Not good. Qin Yu had no time to continue attacking. He hurriedly squatted down and slapped the ground with his left hand. His whole body rushed up and escaped to one side. Whoosh! Wu Tuan's heavy leg whizzed past the place where Qin Yu had just been. If Qin Yu had been a little slower, he would have been kicked by Wu Tuan. Qin Yu's complexion suddenly changed. His body immediately flashed again. Immediately, a sharp pain came from his left shoulder. Qin Yu's body flashed twice, and he was 10 meters away. He turned his head and looked coldly at Jia Ming, who had just launched a sneak attack. That was close. Qin Yu stared at Jia Ming. His left shoulder was in great pain, and blood was still constantly oozing out. When he had just escaped from Wu Tuan's attack, Jia Ming had been ready to launch a sneak attack. Qin Yu had just stood still when Jia Ming's soft sword had already arrived behind Qin Yu. It was aimed at the vital part of Qin Yu's heart. Fortunately, Qin Yu's body moved sideways and squatted down to dodge quickly. Therefore, this fatal sword only pierced through his left shoulder. Your reaction is really fast. You haven't died yet. Jia Ming stuck out his tongue and licked the blood on the soft sword. Suddenly, Jia Ming opened his eyes wide and said excitedly, The taste of blood is really good. It's very fresh and has no impurities. You should still be a virgin, right? Qin Yu was thinking about how to deal with these two people. His strength was not bad, but compared to Wu Tuan, who had practiced the reckless bull force to the peak of the Hotian level, and was born with great strength, he was simply incomparable. And that Jia Ming was like a poisonous snake. His soft sword could launch a sneak attack at any time. Don't think about escaping. If you escape, I'll kill all the villagers. Wu Tuan walked over with a sinister smile. Qin Yu looked at Wu Tuan in front of him, and then looked at those pitiful simple villagers, who had almost no strength to resist. He could not help but clench his fists. However, his left shoulder still felt waves of burning pain. At least, his left hand's attack would be affected. Speed. That Wu Tuan's speed is not as fast as mine. Use speed. Qin Yu secretly judged. Little brat, go to hell. Wu Tuan smiled coldly. His big hand, which was like a cattail leaf fan, suddenly swung down. Qin Yu's whole body was as agile as a monkey. He moved to the side in an instant and punched at Wu Tuan's armpit with all his strength. Wu Tuan easily blocked this attack by withdrawing one of his arms. Bang! Qin Yu's right fist hit Wu Tuan's shoulder, but it was as if he had hit a stone. Your attack is too weak, Wu Tuan said disdainfully. Indeed, the reckless bull force was a kind of internal strength that fused with the muscles. Its defense was very strong. It was equivalent to the peak of the 13 Guardians cross-training method. Qin Yu's attack could not break his defense at all. Bang! 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 Qin Yu's whole body moved extremely fast. His hands sometimes formed into a fist, sometimes into a palm knife, sometimes into a fist, and sometimes into a finger fist. All kinds of attacks unceasingly attacked various vital points. Wu Tuan's defense was too terrifying. The real vital points were firmly protected by Wu Tuan. Qin Yu simply could not break the defense of common joints and other places. Go to hell. Qin Yu, who was in front of Wu Tuan, suddenly flashed a cold light in his eyes. Qin Yu's killer finally came out. He had been waiting for an opportunity to attack the vital points. The Yu clan's one sword must kill the enemy with one sword strike. Once the first strike failed, the enemy would certainly be prepared for the second strike. What? Wu Tuan only felt a black light flashing. The Yu clan's one sword hidden sword strike. A black short sword suddenly appears in Qin Yu's right hand, which has been used to attack with a palm knife. Wu Tuan does not even have time to react. The Yuchang sword turns into a black beam of light and cuts directly at Wu Tuan's throat. The reckless bull force in Wu Tuan's body automatically broke out. Unfortunately, the fish intestine sword was not an ordinary sword. It belonged to the Xian grade sword, although it was only a low Xian grade sword. The fish intestine sword easily pierced Wu Tuan's reckless bull force and cut his throat. Pooh! Blood spurted out. Wu Tuan's eyes were full of unwillingness. Originally, he could have easily killed this brat. He was just teasing Qin Yu. In his opinion, this brat couldn't break his defense at all. However, after teasing Qin Yu, he finally lost his own life, killed by a youngster. Die! Jia Ming, who had been waiting for a long time, shouted loudly. When Qin Yu's fish intestine sword had just cut Wu Tuan's throat, Jia Ming's flexible sword had already arrived behind Qin Yu. Qin Yu simply had no time to dodge, and was about to lose his life. Jia Ming's eyes were full of savagery and bloodthirstiness. The villagers were all stunned. Qin Yu didn't even have time to think at this moment. Jia Ming's eyes were even filled with excitement. He knew that the youngster in front of him was going to die in his hands. Ah! Suddenly, a pair of sharp claws descended from the sky and fiercely scratched Jia Ming's head. Jia Ming's entire body was grabbed and flew away, dying tragically on the spot. At the same time, an eagle's cry resounded through the sky. At this moment, Qin Yu looked at the corpse of Wu Tuan, whose throat had been cut open, and then looked at Jia Ming, whose head had been scratched open. He felt a lingering fear in his heart. Looking up, Xiao Hei's sharp eyes were looking at Qin Yu. Xiao Hei, thank you. Qin Yu let out a long breath. At this moment, his back was covered with cold sweat. His heart was surging. He had almost been killed. That feeling of struggling on the edge of life and death could not be described with words. Qin Yu's heart also gradually changed. Perhaps I should change my training method a bit. Qin Yu looked to the boundless sky and made a decision in his heart. In this battle, Qin Yu had killed 150 people. Moreover, he had almost died. Outsiders simply could not imagine the impact this battle had on Qin Yu. Chapter 23. Time flies. It has already been 3 years since the big battle in the village, where he single-handedly fought over 100 mounted bandits. Qin Yu has also turned from an 8-year-old child, who clenched his teeth and trained hard, to a 16-year-old real external expert. 16 years old is the age of adulthood in the Qianlong continent. Xiao Lu was seriously injured, so she was taken to Misty Villa by Qin Yu to recuperate. Tai Shan was also taken to Misty Villa and started to train with the experts in Misty Villa. Both of their parents died, so they settled down in Misty Villa. They only frequently returned to the village to take a look. Gusts of wind blow, and leaves roll up. At the gate of Misty Villa, two guards are chatting and laughing with each other. Xiao Tian, it seems that His Highness hasn't come back for half a month since he went out this time, right? A relatively older guard says with a smile to the 20-year-old guard on the other side. The young guard nods and says with a smile, "Ever since His Highness came back 3 years ago, he has often gone out. It's quite common for him to go out for 10 days to half a month at a time. But His Highness really works hard. Every time he comes back from outside, he stays in the villa for a few days and trains desperately all day long." Speaking of this, the young guard sighs with emotion. The older guard shakes his head and says, "Xiao Tian, you don't know this. You've only been here for a few years, so you don't know how hard His Highness trains. Back then, His Highness was only 8 years old. At that time, his training was so terrifying that us elite soldiers couldn't stand it anymore. 8 years old, you can't imagine. Other 8-year-old children are playing, but His Highness trains from morning to night. That kind of training is even more painful than the training of the fierce Tiger Corps." The young guard nods. In the beginning, the elite guards and servants of Misty Villa cared and cherished little Qin Yu. But with Qin Yu's extreme training, those elite guards and servants admire Qin Yu more and more. In the last 3 years, East vanquishing Prince Qinda has only come to Misty Villa once. "Little Tian, look. His Highness the Third Prince is back." The older guard's eyes lit up as he pointed to the sky. The younger guard immediately looked up as well. High up in the sky, a huge black eagle spread its wings and soared. This black eagle was larger than an ordinary eagle by more than one size. The golden hair on the eagle's head was like a crown. Its sharp eyes scanned the area below. Its domineering aura was terrifying. Its sharp claws flashed with a cold light. No one doubted the sharpness of its claws. Such a huge black eagle would probably be as tall as a human when it stood upright. There was a black-clothed youth sitting cross-legged on the back of the black eagle. However, the black eagle was flying too high, so it was impossible to see the youth's appearance clearly. Suddenly, the huge black eagle swooped down, and the young man stood up on the eagle's back. At this moment, the guards below could clearly see the young man's appearance. The young man was about 1.8 meters tall, and his face was angular. He always had a friendly smile. He was only wearing a black vest made of a special material and a pair of black trousers. The black vest accentuated the young man's muscles. "Xiao Hei, go find your own food." The young man intimately patted the back of the black eagle and said. At about 100 meters high in the sky, the young man directly dived down from the back of the eagle. His figure was like lightning, and in a moment he landed on the ground. Such a fast dive did not cause the slightest sound of the wind. "We pay our respects to His Highness the Third Prince." The two guards immediately knelt down on one knee and said respectfully, "Uncle Lan Tian, today you are on duty. Well, I will go in first. Let's talk later." Qin Yu said to the two guards with a smile. He did not force these familiar guards to not kneel down. He also understood that this was the rule of the prince's mansion. Qin Yu directly walked towards the west courtyard. On the way, the servants who saw Qin Yu were pleasantly surprised. "Ha! Cultivating outside is not as comfortable as cultivating in the villa." Qin Yu took off the black vest he was wearing. Pung! He threw it on the ground. The sound of the vest hitting the ground was surprisingly loud, as if steel had been smashed. This vest was made of black gold silk, and was extremely heavy. Black gold was extremely precious, 100 times more precious than gold. An expert refiner was asked to pull the black gold into silk, and then weave it into a vest. This 100 gene black gold vest was a priceless treasure. It was given to Qin Yu by Qinda the last time he came to the Misty Mountain Villa. The black gold vest was not only able to protect the body, it was also an extremely good equipment for weight training. Qin Yu was naturally very happy to accept it. After taking off the arm guards and the leg guards, Qin Yu's whole body is completely relaxed. A pair of black iron arm guards, a pair of black iron leg guards, and a black gold vest weighed 300 jin. Even if he was cultivating outside or sleeping, Qin Yu would not take it off. At the moment, however, he was going to enter the hot spring and wash his whole body. After taking off the 300 jin weights, Qin Yu felt extremely comfortable. Haha, hot spring, I missed you so much, Qin Yu said with a laugh. He jumped into the hot spring wearing only his underpants, exposing his muscular upper body. Phew, cool, really cool. Qin Yu breathed out a long and comfortable sigh. Although this misty mountain villa's hot spring could magically change one's constitution, Qin Yu had often soaked in it when he was a child, so it could no longer continue to improve his constitution. However, the effect of relieving fatigue was still outstanding. After lying comfortably in the water for half an hour, Lian Yin went to the west courtyard. Xiao Yu, I knew you'd come here as soon as you came back. You must be feeling comfortable now. Why haven't you come up yet? Lian Yin purposely waited for half an hour. He estimated that Qin Yu had soaked in the hot spring until his whole body felt comfortable. Grandpa Lian, please wait a moment. Qin Yu washed the black gold undershirt, leg guards, and arm guards on the shore of the hot spring, then rushed directly to a room next to the hot spring. That was the room for changing clothes. After a while, Qin Yu changed into a clean set of clothes and came out. Lian Yin looked at Qin Yu with his eyes full of kindness. Seeing a child grow up into an adult, Lian Yan's heart was filled with gratification. Xiao Yu, your 16th birthday is in 3 months. At that time, your father will also invite a lot of guests to the mansion to hold your coming-of-age ceremony. You must remember, don't go out to play so much that you won't even go back to your coming-of-age ceremony. Lian Yin said with a smile. Don't worry. How can I forget my own birthday? Coming-of-age ceremony. At that time, there will definitely be a frightening number of people in the mansion. Qin Yu said with a sigh. He remembered his second brother Qin Zheng's coming-of-age ceremony 4 years ago. At that time, there had also been a frightening number of people. Needless to say, the coming-of-age ceremony for the son of East Vanquishing Prince is something that even the emperor will send people to attend. Most of the bigwigs of the entire Chu kingdom will also attend. Lian Yin said with a smile, but there was a hint of arrogance in his voice. After all, East Vanquishing Prince's position in the Chu kingdom is very high. It can be said that he was second only to the emperor of the Chu kingdom. All right, Xiao Yu, I won't disturb you any longer. Right, Xiao Shan and Xiao Lu both went back to the village to visit. You came back at the wrong time. Oh, I was wondering why Xiao Lu came to see me as soon as I came back in the past. Today she still hasn't come. So that's why. Qin Yu nodded and said with a smile. Lian Yin then left. Qin Yu went to the familiar training ground. There were pieces of bluestone on one side of the training ground. The weight of these bluestones increased in order. The smallest one was only 100 jin, while the heaviest one was more than 1,000 jin. Ha! Qin Yu's eyes suddenly brightened. With a low shout, he kicked the bluestone weighing 150 jin and sent it flying 7 or 8 meters high. Qin Yu stretched out his right hand and held the 300 jin bluestone completely with only one hand. After holding it for about 10 seconds, Qin Yu shook his right hand and threw the bluestone aside. Wearing weights, lifting 300 jin with one hand is more or less my current limit. Qin Yu secretly assessed in his mind. If he can lift 300 jin with one hand, then the power of his punch will be terrifying. It may even be more than 1,000 jin. After all, lifting weights with one hand is completely different from the power of a punch. If Qin Yu were to face Wu Tuan now, he would definitely be able to kill him without relying on the Yuchang sword. Wearing weights, Qin Yu walked to the center of the sandbags on one side. There were sandbags hanging all around Qin Yu. If one moves, all of them will move. This requires a person's agility to be very high. Pong! Qin Yu suddenly punched. Immediately the sandbags moved. When one moved, all of them moved. All of the sandbags around Qin Yu collided with each other. Qin Yu smiled and closed his eyes. Both of his fists easily hit every sandbag that approached him. To be honest, Qin Yu's current speed was not fast. However, he was able to resist all of the sandbag's attacks. This was the mystery of body movement. Every sandbag attack could cause a change in the wind. Qin Yu relied on sensing the change in the wind to easily resist every sandbag attack. In fact, Qin Yu could not be fast even if he wanted to. With 300 jin of weight, if he were to move like lightning, it would be too terrifying. Boom, 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 boom. Suddenly, a series of explosions rang out. Each of the sandbags was smashed apart by Qin Yu's fist. At this moment, Qin Yu finally opened his eyes. There was a trace of a satisfied smile on his face. This movement technique that I created, 7 stars of the Big Dipper Moonlight Dance, the effect after mastering it is really good. At this moment, Qin Yu still remembered the battle that night. He used the Yuchang sword to kill his opponent under the moonlight. Because this movement technique was fused with the 7 stars of Qi Min Dun Jia as the foundation, it was perfected under the moonlight. Therefore, it was named the 7 stars of the Big Dipper Moonlight Dance. When this movement technique was perfected, not only did it have the effect of confusing the opponent with Qi Min Dun Jia, it also allowed the user to move without the slightest bit of wind resistance. Chapter 24. A month later, on a street in a city, it was already late at night, and there was no one on the street. Hao Tan stood in the middle of the street, dressed in luxurious clothes. He couldn't help but narrow his eyes as he focused all his attention on a man, wearing a silver mask in front of him. The man with the silver mask was about 1.75 meters tall, and stood on the street with his hands folded. The silver mask only revealed his mouth, nose and eyes. Hao Tan, get ready. I'm about to attack. The man with the silver mask said coldly. Oh, since when did the Skynet's silver assassins act openly? Hao Tan sneered. Silver assassins? Only those who have killed an expert at the peak of the Hotian realm are qualified to get the silver mask. Unfortunately, assassins hide in the dark and sneak attack. If you sneak attack me, you might succeed. But you intercepted me on the street. Hao Tan was confident. His strength had reached the peak of the Hotian realm. Silver assassins were generally experts at the peak of the Hotian realm. Hao Tan didn't know what kind of medicine this assassin had eaten. He was actually intercepting him openly. Only now did Hao Tan have confidence. This is not good. Who has a grudge against me and posted a mission to kill me on the Skynet? If this is true, then it's terrible. Cold sweat oozed from Hao Tan's forehead. The Skynet was definitely the #1 assassin group. It had a history of more than 1,000 years, and its power spread throughout the entire Qianlong continent. Its foundation was even deeper than the 3 dynasties. The 3 dynasties couldn't really figure out who the leader of the Skynet was. No one had ever doubted the strength of the Skynet. The Skynet was divided into the inner net and the outer net. The inner net consisted of the assassins trained by the Skynet and were absolutely loyal to the Skynet. The outer net consisted of experts who wanted to make money. These experts didn't want to be loyal to the Skynet, so they became members of the outer net. The members of the outer net were very complicated. Maybe a grandmaster was one of them. But no matter who it was, they didn't know the identity of the members of the outer net. Even the Skynet never investigated the true identity of the members of the outer net. Assassins were divided into gold, silver and bronze. Bronze assassins could kill experts at the middle of the Hotian realm. Silver assassins could kill experts at the peak of the Hotian realm. Gold assassins could kill experts at the peak of the Hotian realm. The 2 major systems of the Skynet, the intranet and the extranet, made them an extremely terrifying existence. The Chu Kingdom, which is the largest kingdom in the Qianlong continent, only has about 100 primordial experts. However, there are more than 20 gold medal killers in the outer net of the Skynet. Nobody knows how many gold medal killers there are in the inner net. However, no one doubted the terror of the experts on the intranet. This was the Skynet, an underground super assassin group that had been passed down for over 1,000 years, and whose influence had spread all over the 3 dynasties of the Hidden Dragon continent. Hao Tan was worried because his name was on the Skynet mission board. Are you ready? The man with the silver mask said indifferently. Hao Tan immediately focused all his attention on the silver assassin in front of him. The internal energy in his body began to circulate rapidly, ready to launch his strongest attack at any time. The corners of the silver-masked man's mouth suddenly curled up into a smile. Afterimage. The silver-masked man's figure actually left 2 afterimages. The 2 afterimages, one in front and one behind, one on the left and one on the right, arrived in front of Hao Tan in an instant. Hao Tan's hair fluttered in the wind, and he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. What an amazing speed! Hao Tan was aghast. He could only concentrate his internal energy in his eyes to see a little bit of the man's figure. Hao Tan couldn't care about anything else. He began to madly attack the man's figure in front of him. The afterimages of his legs covered the sky, attacking the silver-masked man's whole body. Ah! Hao Tan suddenly felt a sharp pain in his right foot. He couldn't help but open his eyes wide and let out a blood-curdling scream. At the same time, he heard a bone-cracking sound. At the same time, Hao Tan's whole body was thrown into the air and fiercely hit the wall on the side of the street. The silver-masked man's cold voice sounded. Your speed is not bad, but your explosive power is too weak. In a short moment, the silver-masked man directly dislocated Hao Tan's right ankle joint. Humph! Hao Tan stood up with one hand on the wall. His eyes were filled with hatred as he looked at the silver-masked man in front of him. Your finger strength is really strong, and your speed is also very fast. Unfortunately, if you want to kill me, it's not enough. Hao Tan could feel the strength of the opponent's finger strength. It had unexpectedly broken his Zhenqi defense. Really, the corners of the silver-masked man's mouth curled up again. At the same time, his figure turned illusory, once again forming an afterimage. Hao Tan suddenly opened his eyes wide. The qi in his whole body was completely stirred up. He focused all his attention on the silver-masked man's figure. Even if my lifespan is greatly reduced, I still have to use that move. There was a trace of ruthlessness in Hao Tan's eyes. Suddenly his face began to turn blue. The silver-masked man seemed to have noticed Hao Tan's change, but he continued to attack. Soul-extinguishing claw! Hao Tan suddenly shouted. His whole face became ferocious. His 2 claws attacked the silver-masked man in front of him at an extremely fast speed. His speed had reached a terrifying level. There were even streams of black Zhenqi connecting his claws. Both of them had excellent claw skills, but it seemed that Hao Tan's soul-extinguishing claw was even more strange. In terms of speed, he was not as fast as the silver-masked man. He couldn't even touch his opponent's hand, but, you've been hit! A stream of black qi unexpectedly bound the silver-masked man's hands in front of Hao Tan's chest. Hao Tan was extremely excited. Haha, I see that you're fast. Even if you're fast, can you be faster than my soul-extinguishing silk? Your hands are bound. You can just wait for your death. Haha, hey, why don't you have any internal strength to resist? Hao Tan looked doubtfully at the silver-masked man in front of him. It's too early for you to be happy. A stream of black light flashed. How is this possible? Hao Tan's eyes widened, and then he fell down powerlessly. This claw skill is really amazing. It can actually produce a silk-like qi. The silver-masked man took off his silver mask. It was a strange man. This man's body suddenly emitted a crackling sound. His body began to grow taller, and the shape of his face began to change slowly. A moment later, the silver-masked man, who was about 1.75 meters tall, turned into a 1.80 meters tall Qingyu. If someone saw this scene, they would be extremely shocked. What Qingyu used just now was the appearance and bone-changing technique. It could be regarded as the ultimate art of disguise. The appearance and bone-changing changed the shape of the face by controlling the muscles and bones. Controlling the whole body's muscles and bones controlled the height. Normally, only innate masters could barely use innate qi to change their appearance. In other words, in the eyes of outsiders, only innate masters could use the appearance and bone changing. However, since Qingyu trained from a young age, he had to work hard to control the muscles and bones of his whole body. After 8 years of training, he also frequently absorbed internal strength into his muscles and bones. The toughness of his muscles and bones had reached an astonishing level. Just by relying on his muscles and bones, Qin Yu was able to achieve the appearance and bone changing. Those who are unjust are doomed to destruction. Qin Yu took Hao Tan's head, and then his body soared into the sky. Above him was Xiao He. There was a small box on Xiao He's body. Qin Yu put the head in the box, and then sat on Xiao He's body. Xiao He, let's go. Qin Yu intimately patted Xiao He's neck. Immediately, Xiao He let out a cheerful eagle cry, and soared into the sky. Sitting on Xiao He's back, Qin Yu overlooked the boundless earth below, and then raised his head to feel the strong wind of the night. Since the day of the great battle, Qin Yu decided to fight and train outside. Most of his targets were evil people. After a period of time, Qin Yu joined the outer net of the Skynet, and his assassin name was Lu Xing. The targets that Qin Yu chose for his missions were all evil people who had provoked the wrath of the heavens. In this way, on one hand, he could kill some scum, and on the other hand, he could train his real close combat skills. Xiao He, turn in the mission and return to the Misty Villa directly. Let's go. Qin Yu said with a smile. The black eagle immediately let out an eagle cry, and its speed increased, turning into a stream of light and flying towards the east. Chapter 25. Today the East Prince's mansion in Yanjing is decorated with lanterns and colored banners. It is only early in the morning, but outside the mansion, there is already an endless stream of horses and carriages. All the rich and powerful families of the Chu Kingdom, as well as the nobles and the descendants of the royal family, greet them warmly and enter the mansion with congratulatory gifts and invitations. Today is the coming-of-age ceremony of Qin Yu, the third son of the East vanquishing prince. In the Qianlong continent, the importance of coming-of-age ceremonies and weddings is almost the same. In contrast, birthdays are not so important. At that time, Qin Yu's 10th birthday was only slightly celebrated by some people in the mansion, but the coming-of-age ceremony is widely attended by invitations. Even the emperor of the Chu Kingdom may come. 8 years ago, when Qin Yu's big brother Qin Feng had his coming-of-age ceremony, the emperor of the Chu Kingdom, Xiang Guang, personally came to congratulate him. Early in the morning, the three brothers Qin Feng, Qin Zheng, and Qin Yu go to Qin Da's room together to pay their respects to their father. The eldest of the three brothers, Qin Feng, is the tallest, about 1.9 tall. He always has a cold aura around him and rarely smiles. He only smiles when facing his brothers. Qin Zheng and Qin Yu are about the same height. Your son pays his respects to father. Seeing Qin Da, the three brothers immediately kneel down on one knee to pay their respects. Looking at his three sons in front of him, Qin Da feels gratified. His three sons are all handsome and talented. The eldest son Qin Feng has entered the path of martial arts. Not only is he a general in the army, but he has also become a Xiantian expert last year, and his reputation has spread far and wide. There are no more than 100 Xiantian experts in the entire Chu Kingdom. Being able to become a Xiantian expert at the age of 23 can be considered extremely outstanding. The second son Qin Zheng is more proficient in administration, politics and so on than Qin Da himself. Now he is in charge of almost all the affairs of the 3 eastern region counties, big or small. As for the third son Qin Yu, Qin Da looks at Qin Yu. Seeing Qin Yu, he cannot help feeling a tinge of guilt in his heart. No matter how hard you practice external techniques, you can only reach the peak of the Hotian level at most. If you can't become a Xiantian expert, you will only be at the end of the road. Qin Da secretly sighs. In his opinion, his third son Qin Yu will not be able to achieve too much no matter how hard he works. If he can reach Yunqing's level, even though he is not a Xiantian expert, his attack power will be comparable to an early-stage Xiantian expert. It's a pity that it will take 30 years. Yu has only been cultivating for 8 years. He still needs another 20 years. Unfortunately, Qin Da did not know that Qin Yu's muscles could absorb qi, and his speed of improvement was much faster than what Zhao Yunqing had expected. Get up first, Qin Da says with a smile. Then he looks at Qin Yu and says, today is your coming-of-age ceremony. It's a big day in your life. After today, you'll be an adult. You'll have to face everything by yourself. Don't worry, father. Qin Yu nodded and smiled, facing life on his own. As early as 3 years ago, Qin Yu took the Black Hawk to travel around alone. With the Black Hawk's speed, they almost visited the entire Chu kingdom. After experiencing many things, Qin Yu already had his own understanding of life. Alright, there are already a lot of guests outside. Follow me to greet the guests. After saying so, Qin De takes the lead to go out. Qin Feng, Qin Zheng and Qin Yu also go out after him. On that day, the East Vanquishing Prince's mansion is extremely noisy. Many nobles and rich people come to congratulate him. Of course, these people are absolutely respectful to the East Vanquishing Prince. There are 2 other princes who have the same level of power as the East Vanquishing Prince. One is the South Vanquishing Prince, and the other is the North Vanquishing Prince. The South Vanquishing Prince Mulan of the 3 Southern Region counties comes to congratulate him personally. The North Vanquishing Prince Shangguan Hong of the 2 Northern Region counties also comes to congratulate him personally. The 4 Western Region counties are completely controlled by the royal Xiang clan. This time the Emperor Xiang Guang does not come in person. He sends his younger brother Xiang Shua to congratulate him instead. Qin Yu does not know how many tables have been set up at the banquet. He does not know how many guests have come. But he knows one thing, which is that the gifts he has received fill up 2 rooms. It is easy to imagine how many guests there are. After all, the one holding the coming-of-age ceremony is the East Vanquishing Prince's heir. The whole day is noisy. Late at night, when the guests have all left, the princely mansion is very quiet. In a secret room, Qin Yu has never been to this secret room before. At the moment it is already past midnight. There are only 5 people in the secret room. Qin De, Qin Feng, Qin Zheng, Qin Yu and Su Yuan. Among the 5 people, except for Qin Yu who has a puzzled expression, the others all seem to know something in their hearts. Everybody sit down first. Qin De takes the lead and sits down on an armchair. He waves his hand and says to the others. Qin Yu and the other 3 also sit down around that long table. Su Yuan is still holding a fan. He slightly smiles at Qin Yu. Father, why did you ask me to come here? Qin Yu asks. Even now he is still in a state of confusion. Qin De nods calmly and says, haven't you always wondered what father is doing, and what plan I'm carrying out? Indeed, I've been hiding a lot of things from you. Today, you're 16 years old, and you've come of age. So I'll tell you some secrets. Qin Yu's eyes brighten at once. He has long known that his father is carrying out some plans. He is also puzzled, but Qin De has never told him. Now listening to his father, it seems that there are still a lot of things that he does not know. Today, his father has finally decided to tell him. Do you know whether there was a dynasty that unified the entire Qianlong continent in the history of the Qianlong continent? Qin Yu asks. Qin Yu says with a smile. Of course. A long time ago, the Qianlong continent was always scattered. It was not until 1,000 years ago that the entire Qianlong continent was unified like never before. It was the Qin dynasty that unified the entire Qianlong continent. Even now, the great name of Qin Shi Huang, Ying Zheng, is still reverberating like thunder. Unfortunately, the Qin dynasty was too short. It fell apart 100 years after unification. The Ying clan of the Qin dynasty was also completely wiped out. Qin De slightly nods and says, Today, the first secret I'll tell you is, our Qin clan is the direct descendant of Qin Shi Huang. Qin Yu feels as if his head has been struck by a thunderbolt. For a moment he is stupefied. After a long time, Qin Yu becomes slightly clear-headed. He looks at his father in disbelief. Then he looks at his big brother, second brother and uncle Su Yuan. However, everyone is looking at Qin Yu. Qin Yu completely understands the meaning in their eyes. Isn't the direct descendant of Qin Shi Huang surnamed Ying? Even though Qin Yu has some feelings in his heart, he still asks. Qin De shakes his head and says with a sigh. After the Qin dynasty was destroyed, the whole world hunted down the Ying clan. How could we still dare to be surnamed Ying? We changed our surname to Qin to remind us not to forget that our ancestor is Qin Shi Huang. You should know that our Qin clan's heirloom technique was not originally called Ancestral Dragon Technique. It was called First Emperor Ancestral Dragon Technique. Remember, the blood flowing in the veins of our Qin clan is the same as that of Qin Shi Huang. Qin's eyes emit sharp rays of light. Chapter 26. Qin Yu could not help but feel agitated in his heart. Qin Shi Huang, in the hearts of everyone in the Hidden Dragon continent, represented a supreme position. Not only did Qin Shi Huang unify the world, but his cultivation was also extremely high. In terms of power and cultivation, Qin Shi Huang had reached the pinnacle. No one could compare to him. How could Qin Yu not be shocked that he was actually a descendant of Qin Shi Huang? As a descendant of Shi Huang, do not forget the glory of the Qin dynasty. Qin Yu, do you know how the founding emperor died? Qin stared at Qin Yu and inquired. Qin Yu recalled what he had read in the book and said, Qin Shi Huang's cultivation was extremely high. It was said that he had reached the level of Shangxian. Logically speaking, it was normal for him to live for more than 1,000 years. However, he was later killed by the peerless master, Xiang Yu, the conqueror of Western Chu, who was the first emperor of our Chu dynasty. Yes, the hegemon of Western Chu, Xiang Yu. Qin's eyes emit dazzling rays of light. The 4 Western region counties are the Xiang clan's headquarters. It has been in operation for over 1,000 years. Relying on the 4 Western region counties, it made its fortune and began to conquer the world. Back then, Xiang Yu was known as the #1 exalted immortal expert. The hegemon of Western Chu, Xiang Yu, killed our ancestor. If Shi Huang didn't die, how could our Qin dynasty be destroyed? But, Qin says with a sneer. However, 1 year later, the hegemon king of Western Chu was also killed by 2 Shangxian experts of the Qin dynasty. His Jin Dan was shattered, and he fell into the river and died. Although the Chu dynasty was founded by Xiang Yu, the conqueror of Western Chu, Xiang Yu himself did not enjoy the glory and wealth of a peaceful emperor. We, the descendants of the founding emperor, want to restore the glory of the founding emperor. But we can't be too hasty. He had to choose a target. Back then, the Qin dynasty destroyed the #1 clan because of the Xiang clan. Therefore, the first thing we need to do is to exterminate the Xiang clan and seize the entire Chu kingdom. Qin's eyes emit terrifying rays of light. Destroy the Xiang family and seize the entire Chu kingdom. Qin Yu tried his best to calm down. What Qin Yu had said today was too shocking for him. Xiang Yu killed Qin Shi Huang and destroyed the Qin dynasty. However, the top experts of the Qin dynasty also joined hands to kill the hegemon of Western Chu, Xiang Yu. Otherwise, given Xiang Yu's terrifying strength and the strength of the Xiang clan's army at that time, it would not have been impossible for them to destroy the other 2 big powers and unify the entire Qianlong continent. This was the reason why the Hidden Dragon continent was divided into 3 parts. Qin Zheng put one hand on Qin Yu's shoulder. Qin Yu turned his head to look at his second brother. Qin Zheng stared at Qin Yu and said solemnly, "Third brother, I, eldest brother, and father have been working hard for this goal for so many years. Third brother, remember, we are the descendants of Qin Shi Huang. We must restore Qin Shi Huang's glory." Qin De, Qin Feng, Qin Zheng, and Su Yuan all look at Qin Yu. Qin Yu looked into his family's eyes, thought for a moment, and finally nodded. After 5 years, everything will be ready. At that time, it will be our Qin clan's turn to take action. At that time, we will definitely exterminate the Xiang clan and unify the entire Chu kingdom. At the moment, Qin's body naturally emits traces of killing intent. The light in his eyes is also very frightening. Hearing this, Qin Yu frowns. Qin Yu also knows the situation of the entire Chu kingdom. The Chu kingdom was mainly divided into 4 major families. The first is the royal Xiang clan. It completely controls the 4 western region counties and has 800,000 soldiers. Its 200,000 armored cavalry is even more famous. The second is the Qin clan of the 3 eastern region counties. It has 600,000 soldiers, 50,000 of which are fierce tiger troops. However, the Qin clan has 200,000 soldiers in the Blackwater mountain range to intimidate the #1 bandit headquarters in the world. In reality, It only has 400,000 soldiers at its disposal. The third clan is the Mu clan of the 3 southern region counties. It also has 600,000 soldiers. The fourth clan is the Shangguan clan of the 2 western region counties. It has 400,000 soldiers. This is a rule set by the royal Xiang clan in the past. Each county can only recruit 200,000 soldiers. The entire Chu kingdom's 12 counties are divided by these 4 clans. However, the other 2 clans are neighbors of the Xiang clan, so their relationship with it is not bad. Father, if we want to exterminate the Xiang clan, won't the other 2 clans stop us? Moreover, even if they don't stop us, we can still exterminate the Xiang clan. Taking advantage of the fact that our forces are greatly weakened, they will exterminate us. What should we do then? Qin Yu immediately thinks of the root of the problem. Qin De gives a faint smile. Qin Zheng, however, says to Qin Yu, "Third brother, you don't have to worry about this. Of those 2 clans, the Mu clan is very loyal to the Xiang clan. But the Shangguan clan of the 2 northern region counties is a fence-sitter, so it should be easy to rope them in. Moreover, our Qin clan has been around for so many years, so how can we only have 600,000 soldiers on the surface?" Qin Yu, however, says with a shake of his head, "No, second brother, since the Xiang clan is the royal clan, it must have an intelligence department that monitors the world. Our Qin clan has 600,000 soldiers. If we want to recruit more soldiers, we can only recruit 100,000 soldiers. The provisions, armors, weapons and so on for 100,000 people are all a very large number. It's really too difficult to escape the investigation of the Xiang clan's intelligence department. Also, the Mu clan is very loyal to the Xiang clan. The sum of the 2 will be 7 counties. The Shangguan clan is a fence-sitter, but this fence-sitter may not necessarily rely on us. After all, our power is still inferior to that of the Xiang clan." Qin Yu is somewhat skeptical about his own clan's ability to unify the Chu kingdom. Also, the Blackwater Mountain Range is the number 1 bandit headquarters. Those bandits claim to have 200,000 soldiers, but outsiders don't know how many they actually have. We have 200,000 soldiers, so we must intimidate them. Otherwise, if so many bandits rush into various places like locusts, the 3 eastern region counties will be thrown into chaos. Therefore, the number of soldiers we can fight is only 400,000. Even if we have 100,000 in secret, it's no more than 500,000. How can we fight the Xiang clan? Our Fierce Tiger Corps is formidable, but 50,000 Fierce Tiger Corps soldiers can at most match up to 230,000 soldiers. The Xiang clan's 200,000 armored cavalrymen are not to be trifled with. Qin Yu says again. Qin Yu has found a lot of problems in a short while. Also, if we have an internal war in the Chu kingdom, will the Han dynasty and the Ming dynasty definitely behave? Once these 2 big dynasties get into action, we'll be in real chaos. Qin Yu says again. Speaking of this, Qin Yu himself cannot imagine how his clan will unify the entire Chu kingdom. Qin De, Qin Zheng, Qin Feng and Su Yuan all look at Qin Yu with a smile and praise. "Not bad, you are. I didn't expect you to have such a good view of the overall situation. You've thought of so many things in such a short time. But war isn't as simple as you think. It's not just a simple comparison of power. Rations, fodder, warfare and so on are all very complicated. Moreover, the 4 big clans of the Chu kingdom are not as simple as they appear to be. Don't worry. Our Qin clan has been preparing for several hundred years. We've already made all kinds of plans. After 5 years, you'll see how we're going to destroy the Xiang clan." Qin De says firmly. Qin Yu, however, looks at his father doubtfully. He does not understand why his father is so confident. Among the 4 big clans, the Mu clan is with the Xiang clan, and the Shangguan clan is not necessarily with the Qin clan. So what if they have been preparing for several hundred years? Could it be that after several hundred years of preparation, 600,000 troops will become 800,000? Moreover, the troops in the Blackwater Mountain Range cannot be mobilized. Otherwise, the 3 eastern region counties will be thrown into chaos, and that will be terrible. After all, that is where his foundation lies. Don't worry, your father has already calculated everything. Qinda says smilingly. Qin Yu does not know what his father is thinking, but in his opinion, it will be very difficult for the Qin clan to unify the entire Chu kingdom. After all, the Han dynasty and the Ming dynasty are not incompetent. But seeing his father's eyes, Qin Yu feels a lot more at ease in his heart. Chapter 27. As a subject of the Chu kingdom for several hundred years, the Qin clan has not taken any action. Why did it wait several hundred years before deciding to take action? Thinking of this, Qin Yu looks at Qinda and asks doubtfully, "Father, our Qin clan has not taken any action for several hundred years. Why did it have to take action 5 years later? Could it be that we need to prepare for several hundred years to destroy the Xiang clan? If we wanted to take action, we would have done it long ago." Qin Yu naturally does not believe this. "You are." Qinda's face suddenly has a trace of disappointment and frustration. "Since you asked, I'll also tell you another secret." At this moment, big brother Qin Feng's face becomes even colder. Second brother Qin Jing's face also does not have the slightest trace of a smile. Su Yuan also stops waving his fan. Qin Yu also feels that the atmosphere in the secret room has changed. He understands in his heart that what his father is about to say is absolutely very important. Qinda's gaze seems to be able to travel through time and space. His voice is faintly discernible. "You are 14 years ago. When your big brother was 10 years old, your mother died. On that day, a very big fire occurred. In the past, I've told you, your mother died because of the fire. But the truth is, your mother was killed by someone." The muscles on Qinda's face start to tremble. There is only pain and hatred in his eyes. Boom! Qin Yu's head explodes. His face suddenly turns deathly pale. Mother was killed by someone? For a moment, Qin Yu's mind is in complete chaos. When he was 2 years old, he lost his mother. 2 years old. At that time, Qin Yu was really too young, so he simply could not remember his mother's image. Thinking of his mother, the first thing that appears in Qin Yu's mind is that image. That image was painted by a painter shortly after he was born, when he was 1 month old. In that image, a young woman is holding a baby. The young woman is smiling as she looks at the baby in her bosom. Her loving eyes radiate the radiance of motherly love. At that time, when he was young, Qin Yu did not know how many times he had foolishly stood in that image and looked at it. He said to himself, "This is my mother." In his heart, he tried hard to remember his mother's appearance. Many times, his mother's appearance has haunted him in his dreams. Every time he sees other children in Yin capital with their mothers, Qin Yu wants his own mother. How he wished he had a mother too. When he was young, he would cry beside his father, asking for his mother. As he gradually grew up, little Qin Yu no longer cried for his mother. Every time he missed his mother, little Qin Yu would look at the stars. Grandpa Lien once said that when people died, they would become stars in the sky. This was also one of the reasons why Qin Yu liked to look at the stars. Now that little Qin Yu was already an adult. But at this moment, he was actually told that his mother didn't die in a fire, but was killed by someone else. "Who killed my mother?" Qin Yu stared at Qinda and shouted. His eyes were red. Qin Yu's only mother. The throbbing feeling in the depths of his soul caused the image of his mother in his mind to shatter like glass. A burst of anger from the depths of his soul instantly filled Qin Yu's entire chest. That was hatred, that was absolute anger. "Who is it? Who killed my mother?" Qin Yu's hands were trembling. He was completely agitated. Qin Feng and Qin Jing's eyes were also emitting hatred. Could it be? A light suddenly flashed through Qin Yu's mind. He immediately guessed a possibility. Qin Yu stared at his father. "Father, could it be that the person who killed my mother was someone from the Xiang clan?" "Yes, it must be so." Yes, it was someone from the Xiang clan. Moreover, the murderer was the current emperor of the Chu dynasty Xiangguang. It was he who killed your mother. And it was your big brother who saw it with his own eyes. Qinda's voice was ice cold. In the blink of an eye, the entire secret room became silent. Xiangguang. He thought that by forcing Jingyi to her death, and then making a fire, nobody would know. He thought that I would never find out about his secret. But, He didn't know that Feng Er, who was 10 years old, was hiding in Jinyi's room at that time. Qinda's killing intent surged. That time. If it wasn't for Uncle Feng, perhaps I would have died and the truth about my mother's death wouldn't have been known by anybody. Qin Feng said coldly. Everything had come to light. Everything had become clear. Even though the descendants of the Qin clan were of Qin Shi Huang's bloodline, for several hundred years the Qin clan had been overseeing the 3 eastern region counties and had lived a free and unfettered life. Many ancestors of the Qin clan had advocated living a peaceful life. After all, it was too difficult to seize the Chu dynasty. Perhaps the Qin clan would be finished instead. For several hundred years, the Qin clan had never made up its mind to abandon its current life and seize the Chu dynasty. However, the death of the wife of the current clan master Qin made Qin to make up his mind. Therefore, since 14 years ago, Qin began to make arrangements, and even started the arrangements he had made several hundred years ago. Father, I'm going to lead an army. I must avenge my mother. Qin Yu looked at Qinda and said resolutely. There were only 2 ways to take revenge. The first was assassination. The second was to directly use an army to wipe out the Xiang clan, and then easily kill Xiang Guang. Assassinate Xiang Guang? Qin Yu immediately gave up on this idea. Xiang Guang was the emperor of the Chu dynasty, and no one knew how many experts were around him. Perhaps even Xiantian experts had no hope, let alone him, a practitioner of external techniques. Therefore, he had no choice but to join Qinda's plan. Nonsense. Qinda stared at Qin Yu and rebuked him. You're just a brat. You've never learned the art of leading an army, nor the art of controlling your subordinates. You want to lead an army? Then I'll be a vanguard, a small soldier. Qin Yu said at once. He knew that he really knew nothing about leading an army to war. But Qin Yu really could not tolerate himself doing nothing on one side. After all, he had killed his mother. Vanguard? Small soldier? Qinda said with a shake of his head. If you want to wipe out the Xiang clan, you'll definitely have to send out 100,000 soldiers. When you're fighting, you can't even see the end of the line. So many people are fighting together, what can you do? Without the power of a Xiantian expert, you won't even be able to keep your life in the midst of a magnificent army. Qin Yu was speechless. But Qin Yu wanted to refute. Qinda walked up to Qin Yu's side and stroked his shoulder. He said earnestly, You have to understand that you're a descendant of the Qin clan. The bloodline of the Qin clan can't be lost. Your big brother is a general and has reached the Xiantian stage, so of course I don't have to worry about him. Your second brother is sitting in the rear and handling government affairs and so on. You want to be the vanguard. If you die, how can I explain it to our ancestors? How can I explain it to your dead mother? Don't be willful. If you join the army, father will only worry about you more. You're already an adult, so you have to learn to consider the big picture. Qinda said while staring at Qin Yu. Qin Yu thought for a while in his mind. He understood that if he was asked to handle government affairs, he might be more of a hindrance than a help. If he were to be the vanguard of a small soldier, perhaps when his father was setting up a battle formation, he would be affected because he was in a certain army. Moreover, his attacking power alone was negligible in the midst of a magnificent army. Qin Yu came to a conclusion in his mind. If he were to join the army, he would be of no use at all. On the contrary, it would be counterproductive. Father, I know. I won't affect you. Qin Yu said with a nod, then turned around and left directly. Hearing Qin Yu say so, Qinda could not help feeling sad in his heart. Qin Feng, Qin Zheng and Su Yuan all stood up and looked at Qin Yu's back. Qin Yu walked to the door but suddenly stopped. He turned around and looked at them saying, Father, big brother, second brother, Uncle Su, I'll leave my mother's revenge to you. Third brother, don't worry. We'll definitely destroy the Xiang clan. Second brother Qin Zheng said resolutely. Qin Feng also nodded solemnly at Qin Yu. The way Su Yuan and Qinda looked at Qin Yu also made Qin Yu completely understand what they meant. Thank you. After saying so, Qin Yu walked out of the secret room without looking back and came to the corridor. At the moment, it was already late at night. The sky was filled with stars. When the cold wind blew, Yu's whole body could not help but shiver. Yu suddenly turned around and looked at the room on the side of the corridor. Below that room was the secret room. Perhaps father and the others are discussing some important plans, and I can't help at all. Yu gave a forced smile, then turned around and left. Chapter 28. Early the next morning, Yu leaves the prince's mansion alone and returns to Misty Villa. Only the Black Eagle goes with him. In the days after returning to Misty Villa, Yu trains even harder. Even the time he plans to go out to take on assassin missions has been reduced sharply. Most of the time Yu spends constantly improving himself. When he learns of this news, he only smiles bitterly and says nothing. Late at night, half a month later, Yu walks out of his room and stands in the middle of the courtyard. He suddenly exerts force with his feet. With a swing and a flash, he is already on the roof. Sitting on the roof, Yu looks at the boundless starry sky in silence. Beside him, the Black Eagle also sits quietly. Misty Villa is located on the mountainside. From the roof, you can even see the cliff not far away. Gusts of cold wind blow from the deep and serene cliff, but Yu does not feel it at all. Xiao Hei, I feel that I'm very redundant, very redundant. Yu says to the Black Eagle beside him in a low voice. The Black Eagle stares at Yu with its bright black eyes. It spreads its huge wings and puts them on Yu's back, as if it is comforting Yu. Looking up at the starry sky, Yu's voice is a bit faintly discernible and has a bit of bitterness. When I was young, I thought that my father did not care about me. That was why I worked hard to train, so that my father could accompany me more. However, when I grew up, I found that father did care about me from the bottom of his heart. It's just that he has his own things, so he doesn't have time to waste on me. It's indeed very difficult to destroy the Imperial Xiang clan and avenge my mother. Father, big brother and second brother have been working hard all along, but I'm completely useless. I'm not proficient in government affairs, and I don't know how to lead troops. With this bit of power, I'm basically useless in front of thousands of soldiers and horses. Yu cannot help clenching his fists tightly. Actually, I also want to help father. Actually, I also want to make myself a little bit useful. At least I can be a little bit useful. He hates iron for not becoming steel. Yu hated himself for being so useless. Ever since he was a child, Yu has always felt lonely, even though he can feel that his father cares about him. From the age of 6 to 16, in the whole 10 years of his life, the father and son have only been together for less than a month. He didn't hate his father. He only hated himself for being useless. He now knew what his father was doing. Yu also wanted to do something. He also wanted to help his father, but there was nothing he could do. Perhaps I'm just a burden to father. Innate realm. When will I be able to reach it? With my current speed of improvement, it will take at least 5 or 6 years to reach the limit of external practice. Yu sighed. After a long time, Yu suddenly stood up and took a deep breath. His eyes flashed with a resolute light. Big brother, second brother, father, you're constantly working hard to prepare for the war in 5 years. Then I'll also work hard in these 5 years. At least within 5 years, I want to reach Master Zhao Yunqing's realm and reach the limit of the Hotian realm. Yu set a goal for himself. Value. People living in this world must have value. At least in the eyes of their parents. They must have some value. Otherwise, they will just be living an ignoble life. Yu didn't want to rely on his father's status to be a playboy. He wanted to have some achievements. At least, he could help his father. The Hidden Dragon continent is extremely vast. However, the ocean outside the Hidden Dragon continent is 10 times, or even 100 times larger than the Hidden Dragon continent. Suddenly, the boundless ocean violently undulated. There was no hurricane, no reason. It just undulated violently out of thin air. At the same time, the lingqi of the whole world shook in an instant. The waves rose hundreds of feet high, and then crashed down. All practitioners felt that the lingqi of the world was in chaos. For a moment, they simply couldn't absorb it. Whiz! In the sky, an extremely bright Lu Xing appeared out of thin air. It flew towards the hidden dragon continent at an extremely fast speed in a straight line. It even issued a sharp whistling sound. After a short while, Lu Xing disappeared. The Lingqi of the world also stabilized in a flash. The boundless ocean also returned to its usual appearance. Lu Xing. Qin Yu saw a Lu Xing flying from a very high altitude in the distance. He immediately looked carefully from the roof. That Lu Xing was unexpectedly flying directly in the direction of Qin Yu. Qin Yu's eyes brightened. He said with a smile, "No way. This Lu Xing won't fly directly to the Misty Villa. Will he?" Qin Yu knows that some meteoric iron is mostly formed when meteors or something fall down from the sky. Maybe I can even find a big piece of meteoric iron, Qin Yu secretly said in his heart. However, what made Qin Yu slightly disappointed was that when that Lu Xing was flying in the air, it disappeared while still far away from Qin Yu. Forget it. But to be able to see a Lu Xing, my luck can be considered good. Qin Yu faintly smiled. He then jumped up from the roof and wanted to jump down. However, when he jumped up, Qin Yu's eyes suddenly brightened. What is that? Qin Yu vaguely saw a faint light shining in the west court. He couldn't help but feel puzzled. Qin Yu immediately ran towards the west court. When he arrived at the west court, Qin Yu carefully looked around. However, he didn't see anything strange. Qin Yu walked a few steps beside the hot spring. Suddenly, he felt a reflection on the ground. What is that? Qin Yu vaguely saw a crystal-like object on the ground. Qin Yu squatted down to take a closer look. It was a red crystal that looked like a pendant. He picked it up and placed it in his hand. This crystal looked like a tear. A blood-red tear-shaped crystal. It should be a crystal. Qin Yu looked at the crystal in his hand. He unconsciously liked this crystal. It's not bad to inlay this crystal and make a pendant. I'll give it to Xiaolu. Xiaolu will definitely like it. What should I call it if it's done well? Qin Yu frowned and thought for a moment. Then his eyes brightened. Hey, since I saw it after seeing Lu Xing, and it looks like a tear, I'll call it Lu Xing's tear. Lu Xing's tear. Qin Yu was very satisfied with this name. Qin Yu even slightly tested it in front of his chest. He nodded in satisfaction. But suddenly, Qin Yu felt that his palm had become lighter. That crystal from earlier had actually strangely disappeared. It had disappeared into thin air in Qin Yu's hand. Qin Yu could not help but widen his eyes. Did I see a ghost? Qin Yu's heart trembled. He had never encountered such a strange thing. The thing in his hand had disappeared into thin air, as if it had never existed. However, Qin Yu was very sure that he had indeed found a blood-red tear-shaped crystal. He had even named it Lu Xing's tear. How could it disappear? Could it be that a Khanate expert or exalted immortal used telekinesis to take it away? Qin Yu thought to himself. That can't be right. I was holding it in my hand. Even if it was telekinesis, my hand should have felt the crystal move. Could it have disappeared into thin air? Qin Yu could not imagine what kind of magical power it was to transfer something away into thin air. Even exalted immortals might not have such magical power. Moreover, would such a super expert tease me in the middle of the night? Qin Yu was confused. In the West Court, the confused Qin Yu thought for a long time. However, he could not find any reason. Qin Yu could only helplessly leave the West Court with this confusion. Chapter 29. I feel refreshed. I feel that my condition has never been better. Qin Yu stretched his body and took a deep breath of fresh air. Suddenly, a sharp light flashed in Qin Yu's eyes. Good, I'll start working hard. Within 5 years, I must reach the peak of the Hotian realm. Qin Yu's heart was filled with enthusiasm. He immediately started his morning exercise. Qin Yu had been carrying 300 jin of weight on his body. He ran out of Misty Villa and directly ran towards the foot of the mountain. From the foot of the mountain to the top of the mountain, and then from the top of the mountain to the foot of the mountain, Qin Yu ran back and forth like this. According to the usual practice, Qin Yu would run until he had no more strength to run. Phew! Qin Yu was constantly gasping for breath. Drops of sweat dripped down from Qin Yu's chin. At this moment, he had completely reached his limit. Qin Yu had already known his limit by running like this every day. But who would have thought that today he would run one more round trip than yesterday? Moreover, he still had the strength to run out. Even though he is extremely tired at the moment, Qin Yu is very happy. Today's condition is really very good. If I make progress like this every day, it won't be long before I can reach the state of being invulnerable to swords and spears. Looks like God is also helping me. He cannot help giving a faint smile on the corners of his mouth. Qin Yu could clearly feel the reaction of his muscles. He also knew that he had reached his first physiological limit. Suddenly, an extremely comfortable clear stream starts to flow through every part of his body. It is like a thirsty traveler in the desert suddenly drinking clean water. Qin Yu feels that the muscles in his entire body have reached their limits and are scrambling to absorb this clear stream. Qin Yu was completely dumbfounded. He could clearly feel that his muscles, which had reached their physiological limit and were already tired and sore, were rapidly recovering. He could clearly feel that the strength of his muscles was recovering and even increasing. What's going on? Qin Yu suddenly stopped. Where did this clear stream of mysterious power come from? What's going on? It was too strange. This had never happened before in his 8 years of training. Every time he reached his physiological limit, Qin Yu had to work hard to overcome it. Who would have thought that a mysterious energy would appear today? Qin Yu could not feel its existence in his meridians at all. It was as if this clear energy ignored his meridians and directly radiated throughout his body. His muscles absorbed this clear energy and became more powerful. Qin Yu frowned deeply. He thought about the sudden appearance of the clear stream. But after thinking for a long time, he still could not understand why it was like this. Continue to train. Let's see what happens when you reach your physiological limit again. Qin Yu immediately started running again. This time, the distance that Qin Yu ran was even longer than the first time. The distance that Qin Yu ran in today's morning exercise was unprecedentedly long. They're finally here. Qin Yu felt that he had reached his physiological limit again. Although his legs were running at top speed, most of his attention was focused on his body. A surge of energy began to be born. It's the chest. Qin Yu's eyes lit up. The source of the mysterious energy is in the chest. Qin Yu could clearly feel how comfortable this energy was flowing throughout his body. This feeling was more comfortable than soaking in the hot spring, and more comfortable than old Mr. Wang Xian's massage. Qin Yu suddenly pulled open the black gold vest on his chest and stared at his chest. There was a faint mark. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to see it. This mark looked exactly like the Lu Xing's tear. Qin Yu's chest had never had this mark. He was very clear about it. He did not notice it when he soaked in the hot spring yesterday, but now he had it. Lu Xing's tear. Last night's Lu Xing's tear. Qin Yu's eyes widened. The shock in his heart was simply indescribable. Yesterday, the sudden disappearance of Lu Xing's tear made Qin Yu surprised and puzzled for a long time. However, now that the mark of Lu Xing's tear appeared on his chest, Qin Yu could not help but think of something. Could it be that the mysterious energy that just appeared is related to this mark? And this mark is related to the mysterious Lu Xing's tear yesterday? Qin Yu simply could not understand what was going on. However, Qin Yu was not a country bumpkin. He was the son of East Vanquishing Prince. He knew that some heaven and earth treasures could be integrated into the body. Those treasures were weapons that surpassed mortal grade and immortal grade. Generally, Shangxin grade weapons could be integrated into the body. Qin Yu had never heard of a crystal being integrated into the body. However, when Qin Yu thought of what had just happened, Qin Yu knew. He had made a profit. Limit training. It meant breaking through the limits of the human body again and again. However, every breakthrough would put a lot of pressure on the body's muscles and bones, requiring all kinds of methods to recover. In the past, after Qin Yu had reached his limit, he would need to soak in a hot spring, apply medicinal wine, and so on to recover. However, with that mysterious clear stream, he did not need to waste time recovering. He could break through the limits again and again. Moreover, that clear stream seemed to have increased the strength of his muscles. The heavens are helping me. The heavens are helping me. Qin Yu clenched his fists. The light in his eyes was frighteningly sharp. The heavens are helping me. I originally thought that it would take me 5 to 6 years to reach teacher Zhao Yunxing's level. Now that I have this Lu Xing's tear, 2 years should be enough. Qin Yu's eyes flashed with excitement. Since he was young in his father's eyes, Qin Yu had always been inferior to his big brother and second brother. Big brother led troops to war and was a Xiantian expert. Second brother was proficient in government affairs. Only his third brother, who was born unable to accumulate internal energy in his dantian, was the most useless. However, that Lu Xing's tear was an opportunity to change his destiny. Father, I am not useless. I don't want to hide behind you and live an ignoble life. I want you to know that I am as outstanding as my big brother and second brother. Qin Yu's voice resounded loudly in his heart. At this moment his ambition was soaring. Good, let's start training. Qin Yu immediately started to train again. The crazy training was even crazier than before. Even if Zhao Yunxing came in person, he would probably be scared silly after seeing Qin Yu's training. Because Qin Yu's training did not consider the endurance of the body. It was completely torturing the body. However, outsiders simply did not know. Every time Qin Yu reached his physiological limit, that mysterious clear stream would seep into his muscles, eliminating the fatigue of his muscles. And the strength of his muscles, after breaking through the limit, became even stronger. Breaking through the limit again and again made Qin Yu's progress skyrocket. In the evening, Qin Yu walked back to Misty Villa. His face was full of confidence. After a day of crazy training, the training volume was more than 10 times the previous. However, at this moment, the muscles of his whole body were unexpectedly full of vitality. Chapter 30. That night, Qin Yu was sitting cross-legged in his room. Every night, Qin Yu would use the ancestral dragon arts to transform the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into internal energy. Then he would let it disperse, and at the same time, let his muscles begin to absorb this internal energy. Tonight, Qin Yu also used the ancestral dragon arts. He saw that streams of spiritual energy of heaven and earth were rapidly revolving around Qin Yu's body. The amount was frightening, and because there was so much of it, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth actually formed a blue mist. It was as if a layer of hazy blue mist had enveloped Qin Yu's entire body, and Qin Yu's figure appeared hazy within the blue mist. Spiritual energy materialization. The legendary spiritual energy materialization. If this scene was seen by any internal expert or Xiantian expert, they would be stunned. The speed at which one absorbed spiritual energy naturally represented the speed at which one's cultivation progressed. When one reached the spiritual energy materialization level, one's cultivation speed would reach a terrifying level. According to legends, the speed at which immortals absorbed spiritual energy had reached the spiritual energy materialization level, and even Xiantian experts were unable to reach this level. But now, it was happening to a mere 16-year-old youth who practiced external techniques. At this moment, Qin Yu's face was completely red, and his body was slightly trembling, as if he had received a great shock. Beads of sweat even appeared on his forehead, and the expression on his face was both painful and shocked. But the surging spiritual energy was still unceasingly entering Qin Yu's body. How can this be? So much spiritual energy. Qin Yu was unable to express the shock in his heart. When he used the ancestral dragon arts, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was actually very obedient and quickly absorbed by him. But the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was really too obedient and too easy to control. So, Qin Yu actually absorbed more than 10 times the usual amount of spiritual energy. Could it be because of that Lu Xing's tears again? Qin Yu naturally thought of this, but then he smiled bitterly. Heavens, you're killing me. At this moment, the surging heaven and earthling qi within Qin Yu's body surged into Qin Yu's meridians. It was like a pedestrian walkway that normally only allowed 3 people to walk side by side. But at this moment it allowed 10 people to walk side by side. Moreover, the Ling Qi was unceasingly flowing in. One could imagine how crowded it was. Qin Yu's meridians were now extremely congested. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth had completely blocked his meridians. It's not a good thing to absorb too much spiritual qi of heaven and earth. What should we do now? Qin Yu felt a tearing pain in his meridians. He tried his best to circulate the heaven and earth spiritual qi in his meridians, but there was too much heaven and earth spiritual qi, and it was difficult for him to control it. For example, it was easy for an instructor to control the movements of 100 people, but it was difficult for him to control the movements of 1,000 people. It hurts. Could it be that my meridians are going to shatter and I'll die? Qin Yu smiled bitterly in his heart. I originally thought that the mysterious Lu Xing's tear was a treasure, but now it seems that it is my disaster. So much spiritual qi of heaven and earth is enough to crush my meridians. Qin Yu could clearly feel that every meridian in his body was emitting waves of pain. Qin Yu's meridians had been accustomed to that amount of spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Now that it had suddenly increased tenfold, how could his meridians withstand it? His meridians were completely full, and they were about to burst open. Qin Yu could only watch all of this happen, but there was nothing he could do. Hiss! One of his meridians finally couldn't withstand the pressure and tore open. Not good. Qin Yu's face suddenly turned pale. Hiss! In a moment, all of his meridians were torn open. Father, I originally thought that I was still of some use, that I could still help Father, but now it seems I'm still useless. Qin Yu's heart was sad, but in the face of death, Qin Yu didn't have any fear or grief. Perhaps if I die, Father will be sad for me. Qin Yu didn't know why, but he inexplicably thought of this. However, just as Qin Yu was letting his imagination run wild, the Lu Xing's tear on Qin Yu's chest once again emitted a clear stream. That clear stream immediately flowed throughout Qin Yu's body. It was unknown what kind of mysterious energy this clear stream was, but those torn meridians were actually easily reformed, and the newly formed meridians were much wider than before. Qin Yu was shocked as he stared blankly at this scene. It seemed that Lu Xing's tear wasn't as simple as Qin Yu thought, but for the spiritual qi that was 10 times, or even more than 10 times, the newly formed meridians were still too narrow. After a moment, because the circulation was too slow, the blockage became more and more serious, and the meridians were torn open again. This time, Qin Yu wasn't discouraged. He carefully looked forward to the mysterious clear stream of Lu Xing's tear. Sure enough, Lu Xing's tear didn't disappoint Qin Yu. Another clear stream spread out from Lu Xing's tear. Easily, wherever the clear stream passed, the meridians could be clearly felt recovering at a rapid speed. After a moment, the meridians were formed again, and this time, the meridians were wider than before. Tear repair. No matter how much spiritual qi there was, the meridians would be able to completely withstand the process of tearing and repairing again and again. Qin Yu finally succeeded, but the pain of the meridians being torn open again and again was even more terrifying than the pain of cultivating external martial arts. Various streams of vigorous internal energy rush into his dantian, then spread out from his limbs and bones. Qin Yu's entire body's muscles and bones are absorbing internal energy unceasingly like dry sand. The more internal energy his muscles and bones absorb, the more formidable their transformations become. But as time passed, the inner qi his muscles and bones absorbed became less and less. For hours later, Qin Yu opened his eyes. Sure enough, it's just as I expected. The greater the training volume, the stronger the muscles and bones, and the more inner qi I can absorb. Yesterday, my training volume was more than 10 times the usual. Now, although I've only absorbed inner qi for 4 hours, the amount of inner qi I've absorbed is more than 10 times the usual amount. Qin Yu's face was covered in sweat. The pain from the tearing of his meridians had caused Qin Yu's entire body to be soaked in sweat. My muscles and bones have absorbed so much inner qi. Now I feel. Qin Yu's legs suddenly kicked out, creating a whistling sound. His fists also continuously punched out, piercing the air in front of him. Now I feel. My entire body is filled with power. Qin Yu's eyes shone. He was extremely excited. After a day of training, he could clearly feel the speed of his improvement. 2 years, do I need it? Qin Yu's mouth had a trace of a confident smile. How long would it take to reach the peak of the post-liminary realm? It was useless to guess. He could only experience real training and use facts to speak. Time passed. Qin Yu began to train crazily. Every day, Qin Yu completely ignored the training volume. It was completely attacking the limits of a person's mental endurance. Even if a pre-celestial master came to see, he would probably be scared to death by this madman. This kind of training was simply killing. Wearing 300 gene weights, lifting a few hundred gene boulder with both hands, then running at the fastest speed for an hour. Afterwards, throwing away the boulder, wearing 300 gene weights, swimming in the lake, swimming hundreds of times, and then this was completely beyond a person's imagination. It was simply incomprehensible. Was this something a person could endure? However, Qin Yu was alive and kicking. His muscles became tougher and more flexible day by day. His speed became faster day by day, and his eyes became sharper and sharper. Qin Yu had been wearing 300 gene weights to test his strength with one hand. The strength of one hand increased from 300 gene to 400 gene, 450 gene, 500 gene, 550 gene, 600 gene, 700 gene. But as it increased, Qin Yu's strength with one hand seemed to have no upper limit. Was the peak of the post-liminary realm only about 700 or 800 gene with one hand? In short, Qin Yu's strength with one hand had exceeded this so-called peak of strength with one hand in only 1 year. His strength, speed, and even his body's ability to resist attacks were all constantly challenging the theoretical limits of external skills in the Qianlong continent. Qin Yu was still rapidly improving, and there was no sign of slowing down. Moreover, Qin Yu could not feel a trace of pre-celestial spiritual qi. This showed that Qin Yu was still a post-liminary realm master. No one knew how far Qin Yu had reached the peak of the post-liminary realm. In short, the current Qin Yu could no longer be estimated by common sense. A miracle of external skills was being created by him. Chapter 31. East Hazy Mountain was more than 3,000 meters high. Such a high mountain was naturally covered in lush forests. In the depths of the forest, there were even wild beasts roaming about. At this moment, in an extremely remote forest behind East Hazy Mountain, there was a human silhouette shuttling back and forth at an extremely fast speed. It was as agile as a black panther, and as nimble as an ape. It was to the extent that it could jump up more than 10 meters in an instant and reach a tree branch. Then it easily jumped from one tree branch to another. The strangest thing was that although this human silhouette was extremely fast, it did not cause the slightest sound of wind. The human silhouette suddenly dove down from a height of more than 10 meters like lightning. With a fierce bang sound, it plunged into a small lake in the depths of the forest. The clear and beautiful lake was like a beautiful jade. Small ripples appeared on the surface of this nameless lake. It was so early in the morning that even the pebbles at the bottom of the lake could be clearly seen. So refreshing. Qin Yu suddenly emerged from the bottom of the lake and wantonly shook his head, splashing water everywhere. Qin Yu had already obtained Lu Xing's tear for a year and a half. Half a year ago, Qin Yu's strength had already reached the level of Mandong, who was born with divine strength. His speed was also unparalleled. Ordinary swords and spears could not harm Qin Yu in the slightest. Needless to say, his flexibility and toughness were even more so. Even without wearing gloves, Qin Yu's fingers could easily crack limestone. Moreover, the skin on his fingers was not stiff in the slightest. This completely did not conform to Zhao Yunxing's theory. A person's fingers could remain nimble and also become incomparably tough. Logically speaking, Qin Yu had already reached the level of Zhao Yunxing and even surpassed him. He should have reached the so-called peak of the post-liminary realm. However, Qin Yu's various body skills were still improving at an extremely shocking speed. Qin Yu himself felt that his progress was too terrifying. He also did not want the people of the villa to spread the news, so he directly entered the depths of the forest to train. Training in the depths of the forest, huge rocks could be seen everywhere. Moreover, it was even more beneficial for the body movement training of the Big Dipper moonlight dance. After all, there were no roads in the depths of the forest. There were only various kinds of obstacles. This kind of situation was even more beneficial for the body movement training. In just 1.5 years, the strength of a single hand has reached 1,000 jin. If this news were to spread. Qin Yu had a faint smile on his face. The strength of supporting with one hand and the strength of punching out were two completely different concepts. It was much harder to support with one hand. A single hand weighed 1,000 kilograms, and a single punch was definitely over 10,000 kilograms. With such a terrifying strength, even Man Dong, who was known as the strongest in external strength, would be dumbfounded. For the past 6 months, I've been wearing these 300 jin weights almost all the time. I wonder how fast I'll be without these weights. Qin Yu thought to himself. If others were to hear this, they would definitely not believe it. Qin Yu had been shuttling through the forest at an extremely fast speed. His speed was so fast that ordinary external experts could not compare to him. However, this was when Qin Yu was wearing 300 pounds of weights. Bang! With a few sounds, Qin Yu's dark steel arm guards, dark steel leg guards, and black gold vest had been taken off to the side. Haha, feel it. Qin Yu suddenly shot up into the sky like an arrow leaving the bow. He directly shot out of the water, and then his body swayed in midair. Unexpectedly, he stopped. Yes, he stopped. Although he stopped for only about 2 or 3 seconds. This was the secret of Qin Yu's body movement that borrowed the power of the wind. Xiao! Qin Yu's body shook, and his body swooped down and landed on the ground at an extremely fast speed. Bang! With a tap of his foot, Qin Yu's entire body disappeared with a schwa sound. Then the surrounding trees shook, and a vague sound shuttled through the forest like lightning. He landed. Qin Yu suddenly appeared beside the lake. His face was filled with excitement. After removing the 300 jin weights, my speed has increased by more than a level. It's really too fast, but... Qin Yu frowned. It's just that with such a fast speed, the wind resistance is really too terrifying. Even though I've reached the level of the Big Dipper moonlight dance, I'm still unable to completely dissolve the wind resistance. The faster the speed, the greater the wind resistance. Just now, Qin Yu's speed reached an unprecedented level. In the past, he was easily unaffected by the wind resistance, but with such a fast speed, he was unable to perfectly dissolve the wind resistance. Looks like I'm still not strong enough. I still need to work harder. I'd like to see where my limit is. Qin Yu's eyes burn with excitement and passion. Qin Yu continues to train hard in the depths of the forest on Mount Donglan, late at night, in the Huayang Palace of the Chu Kingdom's Imperial Palace. Huayang Palace is Imperial Concubine Yu's place. Tonight, the Emperor of the Chu Kingdom, Xiang Guang, has come to Imperial Concubine Yu's Huayang Palace. After going through a lot of sex, both Xiang Guang and Imperial Concubine Yu have fallen into a deep sleep. The 2 palace maids outside the door have also fallen asleep, but they still have to make an effort to keep their eyes open. Xiang Guang, who is sound asleep, suddenly starts to tremble. Beads of sweat also appear on his forehead. His entire body seems to be in a state of extreme panic and excitement. No, don't. Xiang Guang keeps saying. His voice is very muffled and deep. It is simply impossible to hear clearly what he is saying. However, Xiang Guang's entire body also trembles. Beside him, Imperial Concubine Yu is also woken up with a start. Your Majesty, what's wrong with you? Your Majesty? Seeing Xiang Guang's very red face, Imperial Concubine Yu cannot help becoming alarmed. Go to hell! Xiang Guang, whose eyes are closed, suddenly shouts loudly. He waves his arms and smashes them on Imperial Concubine Yu's body. Pung! Imperial Concubine Yu is smashed off the bed. A mouthful of blood spurts out from her mouth. She looks at Xiang Guang in disbelief. She is the Emperor's favorite concubine. At this moment, Xiang Guang has also woken up. He looks at Imperial Concubine Yu, who has been seriously injured by him, with an indifferent expression. Men call an imperial physician. After saying so, Xiang Guang no longer cares about Imperial Concubine Yu. He puts on his clothes and directly walks past the seriously injured Imperial Concubine Yu without even looking at her. After a while, Xiang Guang appears in the Imperial study. A hook-nosed black-clad man is standing respectfully on one side. Yang Li is in charge of the 3 eastern region counties, right? Xiang Guang says coldly. Yes, Your Majesty. The hook-nosed man says respectfully. Xiang Guang suddenly stands up. He stares at the hook-nosed man and says, gather all the information about Qinda and tell me. Also increase the monitoring force in the 3 eastern region counties. I don't believe that he only recruited 100,000 more soldiers. We must find out what kind of trump card that Qinda actually has. Yang Li has only found out this little bit after so many years. He's really useless. From now on, Zhensu will be in charge of the intelligence work in the 3 eastern region counties. Transfer Yang Li back. Yes. The hook-nosed man kneels down on one knee and says, you may go. Xiang Guang waves his sleeve. The hook-nosed man bows then disappears from the imperial study in a flash. Xiang Guang looks ahead, but he is thinking about something else in his mind. If I don't find out everything about you, Qinda, I won't be able to sleep at night or eat in peace. Xiang Guang often has nightmares about being killed by Qinda. What he is most worried about is that Qinda will find out what happened in the past. He wants to destroy the Qin clan. But the Qin clan has been in charge of the 3 eastern region counties for several hundred years and is deeply rooted. It is simply not easy to destroy it. Now Xiang Guang's strategy is to find out everything about Qinda. If Qinda really shows signs of rebelling, he will directly mobilize the entire country to destroy the Qin clan. If Qinda still doesn't know what happened in the past and doesn't rebel, then this matter will be dropped. That idiot Yang Li is completely useless. But Zhensu will definitely be able to find out. Qinda, you'd better not find out what happened in the past, and be content with being the East vanquishing prince. If you really want to rebel, then... Xiang Guang's eyes emit a fierce cold light. Chapter 32. Beside a small lake in the depths of the forest of Donglan Mountain. It's been 10 days. Qin Yu leaned against a huge rock with a straw hanging from his mouth. He looked at the lake in front of him with a helpless expression. From the age of 8 to the age of 18, Qin Yu's body had been constantly improving for 10 years. Especially after obtaining the tier of Lu Xing. Qin Yu's body had soared to the sky. However, Qin Yu found that his improvement had started to slow down a while ago. In the past 10 days, he hadn't improved at all. Looks like I've finally reached the peak of the post-liminary realm. Qin Yu suddenly laughed. Other people at the peak of the post-liminary realm can lift 7 or 800 jin with one hand. I'm currently wearing 300 jin weights and can lift 1,400 jin with one hand. If I take off the weights, I should be able to lift 1,500 jin. Speed. Compared to strength, Qin Yu's strength was his speed. Relying on the movement skills he had comprehended, he was able to dissolve the wind resistance. If Qin Yu moved with all his strength, his entire body would be like a shadow. Weak people wouldn't even be able to see Qin Yu's shadow. Strength, speed, agility, body toughness. Qin Yu had reached an inhuman level. In terms of body, even innate masters couldn't compare to him. Of course, if some innate masters used their innate qi, it would be difficult for Qin Yu to defeat them. Those who possessed innate qi were innate masters. No matter what, they were innate masters. Innate and post-liminary were fundamentally different. After breaking through the peak of the post-liminary realm, I should be in the innate realm. But what I practice is external martial arts. If I want to reach the innate realm through external martial arts, what should I do? Qin Yu muttered. He couldn't think of any solution at the moment. After all, no one had ever trained their body to the innate realm. Suddenly, a high-pitched eagle cry sounded. Then, a sharp gust of wind whistled in Qin Yu's direction. A huge black eagle descended from the sky and appeared beside Qin Yu. Xiaohei, you're here. You've been gone for 3 whole days. I thought you had forgotten about me. Qin Yu touched the black eagle's crown and said intimately. Only Qin Yu could touch the black eagle's crown. No one else could touch it. The black eagle was even bigger than it was 2 years ago. It was 2 meters high when standing. Once it spread its wings, Qin Yu could turn over even if he was lying down on the eagle's back. The golden crown of the past now had a tinge of red in its golden center, as if it was a flame. The black eagle looked at Qin Yu aggrievedly, and even flapped its wings anxiously. Qin Yu smiled when he saw this. For so many years, Qin Yu and Black Eagle had been together. Qin Yu could completely understand Black Eagle's meaning with one look. Okay, you didn't forget me. I misunderstood you, okay? Qin Yu said with a smile. Black Eagle nodded its head. Qin Yu couldn't help but smile. Xiaohei, come. I haven't fought with you for a long time. Let's have a match. Qin Yu says, but his body charges at the Black Eagle in the blink of an eye. He reaches out his hand and forms a claw to grab the Black Eagle fiercely. Black Eagle shook its head and seemed to be very happy. It flapped its wings and easily blocked Qin Yu's move. When Qin Yu's eagle claw art touches the Black Eagle's wings, it unexpectedly produces a sound of metal colliding. Qin Yu's finger force is even stronger than that of the Eagle Claw King's. But such a finger force cannot injure the Black Eagle. This black feather of yours is comparable to black iron. Qin Yu took a step back. Seeing that his powerful finger strength only left a mark on the outermost feathers, he couldn't help but feel helpless. The Black Eagle's feathers were black and shiny, and they were extremely sharp. There was a thick layer of feathers on its wings, but Qin Yu's finger strength couldn't even scratch a single feather. One could imagine how terrifying Black Eagle's defense was. Black Eagle proudly shook its head and flapped its wings. Don't be complacent. Seems like I can only use the old trick. Qin Yu quickly took off his black iron arm guards, black iron leg guards, and black gold vest. His whole body suddenly felt as light as a feather. Black Eagle's defense was ridiculously strong. Its attack power is even more frightening. Those eagle claws can even break black iron easily. They are definitely comparable to Xian-grade divine weapons. Qin Yu's physical body has difficulty defending against black iron weapons, not to mention the Black Eagle's claws. Haha, wait for me to beat you. Qin Yu's whole body flashed rapidly. Right, he only had one way. To use speed. Black Eagle's speed in the sky was fast, and its speed on land was also not bad. However, compared to Qin Yu's abnormal speed, it was a little lacking. Qin Yu also needed to take off all the weights to be able to suppress Black Eagle in speed. Xiao. With a tap of his foot, Qin Yu's whole body turned into an afterimage. As soon as his foot touched the surrounding trees or rocks, Qin Yu quickly changed direction. His speed was extremely fast, as if he was attacking Black Eagle from all directions in an instant. Black Eagle flapped its wings and moved quickly. With a flap of its wings, it could change direction. It was also very easy. Black Eagle's body was completely designed for speed. The wind resistance was completely reduced to the minimum. One man and one eagle attacked each other at an extremely fast speed. Eat my diamond finger. Qin Yu's index finger was like a sharp arrow, piercing through the air and hitting Black Eagle's chest. The strongest finger strength only broke a feather, but Black Eagle's chest was covered with a thick layer of feathers. Black Eagle seemed to be very angry. Its speed actually increased again. In an instant, only afterimages could be seen. Wow, it's flipping out. Qin Yu shouted. His speed had also reached the limit. Relying on the Big Dipper moonlight dance, Qin Yu was like a dancer under the moonlight. He easily moved around Black Eagle's body at an extremely fast speed. His hands were also constantly attacking. Even though the Black Eagle is fast, every time it attacks, it has been detected by Qin Yu very early on. The foundation of Qin Yu's body maneuvering skill is to sense the wind. So as soon as the Black Eagle attacks, the wind naturally moves and Qin Yu can detect it. Suddenly, a high-pitched eagle cry sounded. Black Eagle was finally angry. The Black Eagle flaps its wings extremely fast and frantically. In an instant, it is as if a typhoon has arisen in the surroundings. The trees in the surroundings are all bent down by the wind. Kacha sounds are heard. Some branches break off one after another. The terrifying wind speed naturally affects Qin Yu's movements. Qin Yu smiled. You only have this move. Qin Yu's figure rushed towards the north at an extremely fast speed. The man and Black Eagle often fought. They were very familiar with each other. They were very clear about each other's moves. Upon encountering Black Eagle's move, Qin Yu rushed towards a certain place. Stone Forest. Stone Forest, as the name implied, was a place filled with huge rocks. However, Qin Yu and Black Eagle had fought several times in that place. Most of the smaller rocks had already been blown away or destroyed. All that was left were huge rocks that weighed several thousand or tens of thousands of jin. In the stone forest, Qin Yu easily passed through the stone forest. Black Eagle was also chasing after him like a black bolt of lightning. In terms of movement speed, Black Eagle was actually not much slower than Qin Yu. However, it was far from being as agile as Qin Yu. Qin Yu could easily change directions while moving. Originally, he was moving towards the east at an extremely fast speed. He could instantly change directions to the west. Pung, 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 pung. Qin Yu's hands sometimes formed palm blades, sometimes formed iron fists, and sometimes attacked with his fingers. Black Eagle relied on its beak and wings to attack. Its pair of sharp claws did not attack. After all, its claws could only attack Qin Yu when it was flying. Once it flew, Qin Yu could only passively take a beating. After all, Qin Yu could not fly. That would be meaningless. Pung! Black Eagle flapped its wings. Qin Yu dodged, and that wing smashed into a huge rock at the side. Black Eagle's wings were extremely hard. It forcefully shattered that huge rock. Qin Yu suddenly slapped his palm towards Black Eagle's neck. Black Eagle flapped its wings and dodged. Qin Yu's heavy palm suddenly slapped the huge rock. Of course, that huge rock is smashed into smithereens by Qin Yu's palm strike. His palm strike is much more formidable than that of the Iron Sand Palm expert, one of the 8 great external experts of the past, both in terms of strength and toughness. With one man and one eagle fighting like this, the entire stone forest was unlucky. Wherever they passed, huge rocks exploded and shattered. Ha! Qin Yu shouted loudly. He suddenly soared into the sky and slapped down at Black Eagle. At this moment, Black Eagle's back was against a huge rock. There was no way for it to escape. But the Black Eagle easily flaps its wings and moves sideways several meters in the air. Qin Yu's heavy palm then hits the huge rock on the eagle's back. Boom! The huge rock shattered, but Qin Yu did not move. Xiaohei stopped first. As soon as Qin Yu's palm hits the rock, he feels something is wrong because he feels a strong recoil from this rock. Even though there is a recoil when he smashes other rocks, it is only average. However, the recoil from this rock is really too great. His palm even feels numb. Black Eagle heard Qin Yu's voice and came over to take a look. What is this? Qin Yu looked at the fiery red rock in front of him in shock. No, it shouldn't be called a rock. It should be called a crystal. Can a rock that can emit a fiery red light still be called a rock? Who would have thought that there would be a fiery red crystal inside after smashing the huge rock? This crystal was also very big. It was almost half the height of Qin Yu. It was an almost perfect cylinder. To be precise, it was a stick. However, this stick was much thicker and shorter than ordinary sticks. It was as thick as a thigh. Qin Yu held the crystal with both hands and felt a burst of warmth. Oh, it's so heavy. Qin Yu discovers to his surprise that this crystal is extraordinarily heavy. He immediately exerts force with both hands and with a sudden low shout, lifts up this flaming red crystal. Qin Yu's eyes pop out of his head at once. Good heavens, a small cylinder unexpectedly weighs nearly 2,000 jin. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.